got a dream another yes. Tired from over there. But only you. Yeah, just so he did the so I had to fill out a surveyor's that's the again. My first trip. Was the first time in 6 years. And I was still double checking. I got that. And then they dissolved the part-time receptionist position and dissolved the assistant to the director of operations position. So the girl is responsible for all of our lottery prep and all of our lunch prep is gone. So I have re-inherited whatever. A lot of them are starting to do online now. So like Franklin County schools, they have sent me a spreadsheet to put in how many maps and place the I gotta get a new director. Wake County is something. So well, somebody else does that. Okay. She makes sure that, like, I make sure she's over or something. But so, but so she doesn't. Oh, right, and that's why we transitioned it from me to that person because she was the backup for the person beside me. But now that she's gone. I have inherited it, and then they just was our official full-time receptionist back to it was a house last year, so she wanted her, the boss wanted her in the morning back to services, and then she would go to lunch, and then she would go to the front into the front, and so this backup money person did the first morning shift, and then we had a part-timer come in to cover from there until after lunch. And so it's been consistent. So after I don't think so. Is there going to be a PowerPoint for us to link to?
Refresh your screen.
I already closed the meeting. Right.
The link to this is in the opening slide deck. On that last page, if you'll just refresh the presentation. Are we waiting on anybody?
I need like 30 seconds.
Okay.
It was resent. Oh, yes.
You don't happen to have that. It was on when I got here late.
Oh, well, there's that.
Oh, let's give you.
Yeah. Oh, it's on. Oh, what I was gonna say, it's on. Wait, is the bit on? Bit.ly. Bit.ly. /AUG HBMU.
Homebase MU.
Sign in. It's sign in, and then the
SIGNIN. That's the sign in.
so that you guys can sign in and get credit. And then there's a different for the
slide deck. Well, they want to know how many views are here. You got the other one for them?
yeah.
Oh, I do too. That's not.
And the other one is ready. bit.ly. HBMU augmented all Yes, 19, sorry.
Is that it?
Yep. Slash, sorry, after the LY slash. Yeah, sorry. I didn't say it. Like that. Way to go, Cheryl. Bless you.
Just when we come back from lunch, they'll need to be able to get out.
Justin, I love you.
You want the final?
Hi.
So did you have to make a Bitmoji account specifically for that, or did you already have it?
Figured we need some here. All right. All right, there, I put the bit.ly on the opening slide. Okay. So this slide, here's our agenda. But what you have in the slides is not the entire thing. So the afternoon part's not in there yet. We're kind of going to spend up until lunch going over some beginning of the year updates, some new things, some updates on some old things. And then Tess is working on getting access for everyone in our NC training, PowerSchool NC training site. So after lunch, we should be able to get you all in, let you play around, and we're going to talk about contacts and our plan for the upgrade. So I'll start off with some transition items. So this summer's been a little crazy. People coming and going, so just know from me up, it's changed. Deputy State Superintendent Maria, Dr. Petrie Martin, she's no longer with us. That she's been replaced with Dr. Emery. And then under her, we've already introduced Dr. Wren, the Division Director. Home-based manager, Rosalind's position. It's been posted, but it's not filled yet. I think we're working on
Interviews.
Yeah. So interviews are being lined up now. The training team, like I said earlier, Tessa's joined us to fill Jackie's position that's been open for a year. And then Tiffany just left us last week. So that left another hole there. So vacancies right now, we've got several. We've got Darcy's vacancy still out there, but it's not been posted. Tiffany's, a couple others. And then the PowerSchool support transition. Transition into PowerSchool, and we're going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to get into it much now. Okay, so we'll start off with some reminders. The grade scale type, has everyone changed back to the alpha type? If you haven't, we need to get that done, and we're going to start pulling reports at DPI to see who's not changed back to the alpha type. iStation, how many people have tickets in on that already? Anybody? No, that's good.
That's not a high school thing, right?
Right. So there's known issues that we're working on right now. We know that the rostering is not accurate, and I'm hearing that even though you're assigning the roles that we pushed out, the iStation roles, it's not always sticking. So you can see the roles attached to the person, but the person really doesn't have that role. So that's being looked at. Yes.
Who's the contact for iStation? Who should be the contact for iStation?
Your district.
And whoever was your contact for M class would probably be your same contact for iStation.
But are you saying that they need to assign the roles in PowerSchool just the same way they assign the in-class roles?
Mhm.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
And they would do that, not us PowerSchool.
well, I always did it when I was a coordinator. I did the in-class roles. Just because I didn't want anybody else messing with security.
Justin,
Yes.
in-class roles go,
In-class roles are still there.
but they don't need it.
Do we assign those as well or no?
Right. Are we still using in-class at all? No, okay. So no, the reason we left those, we left them intentionally because we had a script that we ran so that you all wouldn't have to go in and assign all the principals or whoever back to those roles again. So what we did was we went out and we found everybody that already had an M-class role, and we automatically attached the iStation role to those people. So if you want to go in now that we've done that, you can remove your M-class role.
But they don't have to assign in-class, they'll need to
No, no,
assign
no.
in-class.
Right.
They don't need to assign iStation.
Yeah.
Do we have to,
What was that?
do we have to remove the ones that are already existing?
No, it doesn't hurt it. Also, with iStation, there's a report that we pushed out. I think it's a SQL report for iStation roles. Just like the M-class roles report, there's one out there now for iStation. Any questions? All right, Eddie, we had a lot of problems with this, and it came down to years ago, PowerSchool controlled that. They turned it on and off the feed. And then later on, they put that in Enterprise Controller so that we could have access to do it ourselves. And for some reason, even though I went in and enabled it on my side, they had something on their side. They still thought that they controlled it. So I think there was confusion there, and they were going in and doing something after I would do it, and it was back and forth for 2 weeks. But anyway, the feed was enabled, and then last week we heard that some districts were reporting grade levels missing again. Anybody in here having that problem now? Not now? Okay, so good. So you had it last week. Then it should be cleaned up. Good. Start and end times. I put this on here even though it's due September 15th. We had a meeting last week and they asked me to ask you all to go ahead and put the stuff in there now because we think we may have to pull that sooner than September 15th. So if your start and end times are not up to date, go in and do that for us. Right now, there's plans. We know for sure right now we're going to have to make this a twice-a-year report. So we're working on creating, I think, an April report for start and end times. And the reason is we know school start and end times change after Christmas, after the snow season. You might have to go in and add 10 minutes to your day or something like that. So just know that we're creating another report. It's going to be due in April, but there is talk of having this due monthly. Yep. Yep. For this year, it's just going to be twice a year, but moving forward, I know. I'm going to try to get it down to quarterly at least.
It don't even need to be quarterly. Once the year starts, that's what it is.
Not necessarily one natural disaster.
Well, yeah, if there's a
Yeah,
natural disaster.
that's what brought on the discussion of having it due more often because of the hurricanes, because it changed, what, mid-fall? So get that in and look for a communication because we may be sending out something that says, hey, we're pulling this at the end of August instead of September 15th. Questions? All right, then your technical contacts. We kind of touched on this morning, but it is important that that EOI contacts page be the people, be the individuals you want submitting tickets to PowerSchool. Those individuals will also be the ones that PowerSchool is going to come in and work with and train. So let's kind of go over that. PowerSchool support. They're going to start off by looking for who's already went through the training with PowerSchool, like PSU, who's tested. And I know that several of you are going to ask, like, how do they know? Because back when we started all this, there was no, there was no test. We just went through the training with our project. What do you call it? We didn't take a test.
There was at least one person whose district should have. Back when we started.
But the implementation managers kind of walked us through all this to start with. So PowerSchool's going out there and they're trying to find a list of transcripts or whatever of folks in the district who have already tested. But you get, and I forget the numbers, the breakdown, you all should know because you would know if you have more than 2 contacts. But you get 2 contacts. Those 2 contacts, there's going to be, if you've not been tested by PowerSchool, then we're going to provide you with some training up front. DPI is going to do that, right? And then we're going to give you kind of a sample test. And then PowerSchool is going to test you. And I believe we negotiated back and forth, and the score that you're going to have to make is a 75. And then you're certified. And then come December 31st or whenever this cutover date is, right now it's the end of the year. It's by December, everybody has to be certified. Then you'll be able to submit tickets after that. So if you fail that test, then PowerSchool is going to come back through and they're going to provide training. That's when their training is going to kick in, right? So in a way, if you've already passed the test, I'm going to tell you this. You might want to put somebody else in there as a technical contact to get them trained, if you know what I mean.
But you didn't hear from, we didn't hear from you.
Huh?
But in the meantime, you could put pictures together.
Yeah, you can. They're not really going to go by that list until after the cutover. They're not. They probably don't even have a list.
From that group, and this is not a bad thing.
When the
I
training.
had a teacher try to put a ticket in.
You have to let them.
Somehow,
Do what?
I had a teacher try to put a ticket in somehow. She found an email address, probably buried somewhere, and she tried to put a ticket in. And I got an email from PowerSchool support saying, hey, this person tried to put a ticket in, and they just smacked her back. But that's not a bad thing. So, but what are they using if they're pushing her back, if they're not looking at that list?
So are they looking at that list now?
Yeah, they already pulled the list. Cause I just went through it last week. I was talking to Walter about it, because I had new charters that I just trained. So they have already pulled the list. But if you're new and you're not there, you can still submit a ticket requesting to be added, and they'll either contact Walter or somebody in the LEA to verify you.
So are you saying if, even though we've been there since the conversion from NCYs to PowerSchool, because we did not take the test, we're gonna have to drop back and take the test?
Yep. If your name's not on whatever list they find of who all's been certified.
If you don't currently hold an IPT certification, you can either test out. I think we're working on doing refresher trainings that are shorter, where you can do the full training and take the test. But per PowerSchool, you have to be IPT certified.
So are they sending out emails to those of us? Because this is the first time I've heard
No.
of
We're
this.
still working on it with
Yeah.
them.
We've been pushing them to connect with us so that we can let you all know what the plan is. So we finally made some movement last week, and I think in the next couple of weeks, you'll start seeing some things come from either us or them.
I'm just gonna put it out there. What if I fail the test? What if I
You gonna fail it on purpose?
No.
But what if we
What
did?
happens then?
If you fail the test, that's when PowerSchool comes in and they'll train you.
Is that on our dime? My county's dime?
No cost. Now, it is on your dime. If they come in and train you, you test again and you fail, and then further training is needed. That's when you would pay.
Yes, you do. If the person keeps failing. I mean, I'm just asking is, I mean.
That's an awkward conversation.
I'm not
Right.
gonna say it's, I'm just asking.
When we had these discussions,
Asking for a friend.
when we had these discussions, we kind of thought, this is giving you all power to put the right people, or giving districts the power to put the right people in the jobs.
But
Right.
people, but the districts don't always realize that the right person's not in the job, and you can't always do something about that.
Well, when it comes time to pay for the training for the third time, you're gonna think twice.
Plus you have people that just don't test.
What type of test is it? What type of question?
Okay, first of all, I don't test well. I took it, it was a 30-hour course, and I passed it. So even if you don't test well, like, I am not good at tests, but once you know the stuff, they're pretty simple. They don't try and trick you on the test or anything. It's everything that you learn. So I wouldn't get too concerned about it, because I passed it easily.
It's open book tests.
Yeah, and I was brand new to DPI and student information.
Wait, there's a book?
Yes,
Open notes.
Well, they test you for conduct, they're not testing your conduct.
right.
Full conduct.
Yep, it'll only be core. The
Yeah.
test will be core product. So once we know what PowerSchool's plan is as far as when they're gonna be available for training, then we will start scheduling our refresher courses. And I guess we'll have to make those regional.
Is there a practice test out there we can play with?
Is there a practice test? That's a good question.
We're working on that.
Yep, okay, that's in the
I'd like
works.
to know ahead of time if I'm not being stumped.
Understood.
Will the trainings be like multi-day things, or will it be like?
The refresher courses are gonna be a little shorter.
Okay.
And we're trying to work with PowerSchool to find out how long their training's gonna last. Because you know, if you went to PSU, it's 5 days, right?
Who can afford to go to PSU?
Yeah, it was 30 hours.
Not me. Not for.
So we don't know if they're gonna come in and give you a 5-day training or 3-day, we don't know
Is there
that.
access to the list of those that they say are okay versus those of us? who-
They've not gotten that to us yet.
Will that be coming?
That's the first thing they're working on. So that'll be the first thing we reach out to you guys on, is to put this list out or email you and say, hey, you're good, you're certified. No need in testing. Any other questions on support?
So we get a raise, right? if they get certified?
I was gonna ask that, so does that mean the salary rate changes come?
No, but you'll have a nice little, what do you call it? Seal to put on your email.
Oh, yeah, well, is
Signature.
that how we get the fancy icon? Yeah.
So what did you have to do in the beginning to get the IBT certification? 5 days?
Yeah, it was a 5-day, it was 30 hours of the course, and at the end you take the test, and like you said, it's open book, open note, so, and it's core PowerSchool, it's not North Carolina specific.
Is that the new user workshops? Do they test at the end of those?
Those are the DPI workshops, but PowerSchool should be coming around and doing trainings for those, for the IBT ones.
Anybody in here tested? You know you've tested.
I've not seen either here.
Wow. Sandy, not even you?
What? I'm sorry, I was on.
Are you certified?
I'm not certified. I've been to PSU, but I never did one of those, take the pathway thing.
Right.
We had those courses, the week-long courses when we converted them.
Yeah, but
We never did
We never got
That's what I thought,
anything
'cause I
that-
started
but
with-
I took that, yeah, I took that training, but I never got anything that said you're a certified person.
That's what.
I had to go to Joan to get our certification.
See, that's
You
great.
realize that does drop out because we don't have that certification. Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, I went through with our project manager, implementation manager, and I was there since day one when we started converting. And I don't remember ever testing. So, but that's one thing we asked. We asked them, surely they know who of this group was there day one. Because those project managers were assigned to that person. Yes.
Is it just an online test? Is it done anytime, anywhere?
That's good. Other questions? All right, we'll send more out as we get it. I put all these things on here, even though I don't have updates on all these things, just so you all know that I know I don't have updates. We met last week. We had a great internal meeting. I invited a lot of different directors and managers throughout the building. And I wanted to get all these people at the table, like you guys keep emailing me about preschool, ECATs. Anyway, so I brought them all together, only to learn we're not really to the point to where we can tell you what to do for sure on a lot of items. Preschool enrollments, we know that's gonna happen. We know you have to schedule those students in the school that they're actually sitting in, right? What we're waiting on are some enrollment and discipline expectations. There are some new discipline codes that's gonna come with that I'll be pushing out. But she did tell me, the person over this told me that for our August webinar that we have, I don't think those are scheduled yet. Yes, you'll have to remind me. So we always do a webinar the Thursday before, a maintenance weekend, right? And so she told me she would be on that webinar with me and have updates for you all on that day.
So there's gonna be different codes just for preschool.
No. So there's like 2 codes that you would only assign to preschool students that's not in our regular list. So initially we said, you remember if you went to the conference, they said we'd be duplicating all of those codes and then putting PK or something in front of it. And that's not the case. So we're just gonna add 2 codes that would only apply to preschool students.
So this is preschooler enrollments, not enrollments that happen prior to school starting.
Right.
So they have to be scheduled.
They have to be in something, whether it's a homeroom, just for attendance purposes. But as far as the day, the length of time, it doesn't matter.
Okay, because I had heard they were actually tracking the length of time, but
Not from my last update. If so, I would just schedule a solid day homeroom. Don't we have a course code out there, preschool homeroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is just for the kids who are physically coming to a preschool program, even if they're a 3-year-old. So if we have people who are just being served that are that age group as preschool, we still leave them in CCAS in the 292 school.
Say that again.
If we have kids that are just being served by the EC program, but actually physically not coming.
Right.
We still leave
I
those
think you'll leave those, yeah.
292.
Is the name of that gonna change from the Sika school to the ECAT school? Like change the name.
Other questions on preschool enrollment? Yes.
In our district, we have a pre-K center that is not a school level, that is currently serve 350 students now. And I've asked this before about what to do with those, and then we also serve probably another 100 through daycare and other facilities in the district that are all entered under really a school number we have. We also have a hospital school number that we've got them entered into right now, just as a polling point. We of course enter all of ours that are enrolled at school and the school they're in, but my real question is all these people that aren't at a real school.
Right. And that's the part that they are still trying to decide. So that's the piece that's coming in a couple of weeks. Yes.
Kind of piggyback on that, I've still been unable to figure out how to get a new school, not a real school, but a building that students physically walk into. And I need a number in PowerSchool, and a lot of people have been kind of very helpful for me, but I haven't made it happen. So there's something about, it's gotta be an Eddie, it's gotta be a PowerSchool, but every time I go to create a new school, I get a,
What's the process for creating this?
An actual physical school that's gonna be an Eddie or a non.
So is this, it's gonna be a real school? Like,
it's a building, and I have pre-K kids go in there and get services, but I can't create a school number to show that there's children that go to the.
so it sounds like her question's the same, yeah. Y'all are in the same boat.
Would you be reporting on those kids? Like, are you gonna schedule them and they'd be
Well, preschool kids don't have to
reporting?
be.
Well, they're
You
pre-K kids.
can't create like a fake, per se, school that you're gonna have students physically in PowerSchool where that'll be reporting on. Like it has to be an actual school that has to go through the process of setting it up and get an edge number, and it has to be a designated school through that whole process. But if you're just doing it just to simplify your PowerSchool instance and you're gonna be reporting on those students, you can't do that.
So where would those kids be then if they're pre-K kids and they go into a building that's not the school?
That's the part that DPI is still working on, because they're trying to figure out what school number you can use. And I think it's gonna be a number that everybody uses. It'll be the same number. Kind of like, what's some of them? Kind of like CPS.
Like
Yes.
special schools.
We have the same scenario where we can use them in their home-based school. And then their teachers are just assigned to the school of their home-based school. And they're actually transported to that physical building. Is that okay or is that not?
Sounds like that's what they're getting away from. So now you'll be putting kids in that actual,
Well, how do we go in school already?
I know.
So do we undo what we've done?
So yeah, good question. I also asked, I told them, I said, we've got schools starting up already, right? They've already enrolled these kids in wherever they wanted to, because we didn't give them the guidance that we should have given them by now. So along with this, when we have that webinar, I've asked her to go ahead and have a date in mind to give you all time to go in and move the students. So I don't think it's gonna be something we have to do immediately. Huh? Yeah.
Because I have a year-round school that started 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And we've already set up the calendar as a track day and track B calendar based on those pre-K and those kindergarten.
Yeah.
You know, and then that report that had to turn in
So what kind of date do you think I need to go back with?
next school year.
I mean, if they have to set up brand new schools, they're right, the next school year.
Because our year-round started July.
Don't be a pain transferring all those students out with the records.
And
You
our
do it, Tina?
calendar's already set up on track A, track Z.
Gotcha. I'll take that back. Anything else on that? All right, grad plans. I spent forever on this past week updating. So a lot of you had tickets that you put in last year, right? Because the grad plans weren't accurate for students. Courses were missing from the grad plans is what we learned. So when Doris left, Doris did all the enterprise controller work, okay? So when you enter a course, when I go out there, you know, we don't have CTE ads 200 a year. Every time I enter a course, I didn't know because nobody fed this down the line and there was no documentation left behind when Doris left. Every course that you add has to be added to every single grad plan. So FRC, UNC, all the pathways, and it's a nightmare. And it's not something you can just say associated to this, and this. You have to go to each, it took forever. So I think a lot of the tickets that you had submitted last year on the grad plan was because those courses weren't associated to each grad plan the way they should have been. So they are all up to date now.
Till next week.
Are there, since you've now done it, is that something that we'll need to worry about doing moving forward as things get added, or will that be done as part of the like?
No, it's something I'll have to do every single time, every time we have a course. But we know that now, it's documented, so if I leave, somebody else.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did anybody else have an issue where your graduate analysis report were showing kids having the global language endorsement when they didn't have 4 years of the same foreign language? So it was showing a lot of mine had it, and they absolutely did not. And there's nowhere to override that or to change it from whatever it is to what it should be.
I hadn't had that, but I was still having issues this year with kids showing they had met a CTE concentration when they had it. And there's no way to override that either. So it would all, I mean, both would be related to the way those courses are set up, the local language as well as CTE concentration.
Yeah, CTs.
I can look at the GLE endorsement setup.
There shouldn't be any
But it's-
endorsements that we cannot override because it's not. Whatever reason.
Jot that down too, Tess. Override endorsement.
Yeah, we can override this.
Can't override.
Yeah, because I have the CTE person is always saying, can you take it off? And I'm like,
So we need to talk
no,
PowerSchool.
not unless I
Especially
remove it.
GLE's
We're
not working
Supposed
with
to be
it.
able to override some of them. I think it's a
But we
legislative
used to
thing.
be able to override it
Yeah,
in PowerSchool.
yeah, on the graduation page, you just say no. Because I have to, so I'd end up having to do paperwork to accountability services to remove them off the concentrator list, the recording. There's a way to do an override, you know.
I mean, we can put it in that they are a concentrator, but we can't remove that they're not.
Right.
And that's especially bad for our OCS kids
Yeah, that's good.
and certificate kids who do A and B, and they, even though they've got 4 credits, didn't mean that they completed all of the.
Right.
Where if they take a 2-hour course, it will somehow like makes them concentrate. Or not 2 hours, 2 hours.
So we need a way to override that they're not actually.
We don't, there's no way to do that, we need it.
I mean, I can see
That's the
why it's not there because it's about accountability
Yeah.
and participation. So I understand why they probably don't want us to override it, but it doesn't read it correctly.
And there's a whole lot of things that have to do paperwork now for accountability.
Yeah. Data corrections.
All right. The GDB report, we'll take that back. GDB report, everybody got the memo, right, that we had to go back and change the dates just like we did last year to June 30th or prior for summer grads to be picked up as part of the school board. What happened was, after we met last year and we got through with GDB, we realized that we need to open that up for 15 more days. We need to go back and change the report to where it captures the 15 days after June 30th. And the requirements didn't get sent over to PowerSchool, so PowerSchool didn't update it. Here we come back this year, and then it hits us. So we've already started working with PowerSchool on making these changes for next year's report. So we're going to extend that date from June 30th to July 15th. But your report's going to be due sooner next year. We wanted to make it the 16th, so you had to go in there and graduate them and then submit this report. Because all this is doing, if the cutoff is July 15th and then we give you until July 30th to submit a report, then technically you could go in and falsify some grads just to make it look like they graduated within that 15-day window. So we're wanting to get that due date as close to the 15th as we can. So the 20th next year is on a Monday. So that's going to still give you a few days to go in and submit your GDB report. Questions? But for this year, if you accidentally submitted your report and you've not heard this until today, then shoot me an email and we can go back and ask for that to be opened up again so you can rerun it. So anybody that graduated this year between July 1st and July 15th should have counted as a graduate this year. You should have went back and put their diploma issued granted date as June 30th. All right, infield, out of field. That's another one we really don't have an update on. But I brought this up at the meeting last week. The report that was already due, that we should have submitted, was for last year's information, right? That was for last year's data. The problem is, when we went back and started testing it, we found out that PowerSchool didn't build it to where we can run a report in a previous year. So every report we create, they're supposed to make it to where you can go back previous years and rerun a report, right? But now, the way it's built currently, when you go back to last year trying to rerun the report, it's grabbing this year's file and merging it with some of last year's stuff, so it's not even accurate. So I'm gonna say, we're probably not gonna ask you to submit last year's report, but we're having meetings with the business owner to try to determine how we can collect what they wanted.
Even for this year's data, it's not accurate. It's showing
Right.
people not having certification, and
Yep.
I absolutely verified people have certification.
And we know that in PowerSchool, so we're putting files out there and PowerSchool's not able to grab them, and we don't know why. They're able to pick up like 2 of the 4 files. So that's why the stuff this year is not even accurate. So once I know more about that, I'll share it with you, but I wouldn't worry about it right now. We've got a lot of tickets coming in saying their infield, out of field information is not accurate. And we know that, so there's no need to put a ticket in. Until you hear.
Stop setting deadlines for something that's not working.
I agree. Okay, dual language immersion. Special programs. You all know you can go in and create special programs. I can do that now through Enterprise Controller. I had that built by PowerSchool. They fixed it to where I can push out special programs. While we were testing it though, it didn't work. Because, well, I'll tell you why. So and apparently in the very beginning, when we went to PowerSchool, somebody must have went ahead and thought this through, and they had created all the special programs we wanted you to use, right? So those are all in Enterprise Controller. And I just assumed that those were automatically being pushed out to you guys. But I think maybe in the beginning, they couldn't make that happen, even though they'd already created special programs. They couldn't make it happen where they could push it out. So then we put it on you guys to create, or maybe we went in and created them for you. So what I've got to do now is I'm just going to delete all my special programs out of Enterprise Controller. And then anything I add moving forward, I can push out to the state. So what you're going to see, anything we ask you to use for a report, like the hurricane days or dual language immersion, I'm going to start putting NCPPI in front of those. So you'll know the difference in what I've pushed out versus what you've created. So anything NCPPI hyphen, like in this case, it'll be dual language immersion. That's going to be one you don't want to delete. And then we won't have to ask you guys in the future to go out and create special programs for things that we need to pull reports on. Because I'll just be able to push those out to you. Are there any other special programs while we're doing this that you guys think would be beneficial?
Is there information anywhere about special, like, I haven't been using any special programs, anything, because I don't know anything about it, and I don't want to break anything. Is there information somewhere for what we would want to use that for? Otherwise,
Do we have any QRDs on there? Special programs?
Well, yeah, if you have students that are in special programs and 504 and stuff like that, you do find QRDs and information on the NC says about it.
but like aside from like 504, I built because I had to, because 504. But is there any other reason why I would make something not?
It's just a way you can track the group of
Yeah,
kids.
it's just for
We can't
students
hear
in
what
special programs.
She's asking if there's any other reason.
Like, why would I care about building a special program school if I wasn't told to do it? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, it's not a school, it's just a special program within your school.
Student program indication.
Okay,
Yes, maybe this one.
same thing. For my
Two things.
purposes.
First of all, and I apologize, I haven't really looked at this in a long time. But at one point in time, that page, that special programs page, DPI locked it down because you could access kids that were like, if I had a student that had been in a school and then went to a different school, but they were in a special program at my school, I could still access them after they were withdrawn. And I haven't looked at that in a long time. So, might want to look at that page and see if that's still the case.
Okay.
Because when you pulled up the special programs, the list of kids that were in special programs is the list of kids, and you could click on those students and access and make changes. So I don't know if it still works that way. Second, why do we have what's the purpose in a special program for dual language immersion to put on a student?
class size.
How is it gonna identify a student? It needs to look at a section.
Right, so, yeah, I was gonna get to that.
Okay.
For dual language immersion, in your section setup, she's right, so you can assign special programs to students, or you can assign them to sections. So in this case, for class size purposes, legislative class size, we're going to be excluding sections that are labeled as special program dual language immersion. So when you go to section setup, somewhere on there, and what I don't like about it is the wording is different. Somebody go to that page. What's it called on that page? It's not called special program on the section page, but that's actually what it is. In the drop down on the section setup page, when you pull the drop down, it shows you all of the special programs you've created in your school. So what you're going to do in these cases is you're going to assign it to that section. And then in turn, it's going to automatically attach it to the students and the section. And then we're just going to ignore those. Now, the bad thing is it's too late to do that for this year. So the report, and we're going to get to class size in a little bit. The report for this year, because this was not in place then, it's
called program.
It's just called program? Okay.
So what makes it a dual language immersion? Just the fact that it has ELL kids assigned to it?
No.
They're actually,
DLI
I
is not
think
the
they're
same as
having
DLL.
instruction in
Wait.
different languages.
Yeah.
They teach the whole math class in whatever language that is.
It's supposed to be half of their instruction time is in a different language.
Correct. Program film has many of that.
Right, yeah, it's, ELL is generally still taught in English, because you may have multiple languages in there. ELI is, I'm sending my kid to a Spanish immersion school, because I want them to
Yeah.
speak Spanish for real. Not like they learn it.
Part of section attributes is related to the district out for DD. For DL, dual language.
Push it. Say that again.
This is a section attributes. Yeah, instead of going to each section.
Probably, yeah. So that's NDE.
Okay.
I haven't checked, that's good.
And DEA?
Yeah, DDA. That is in there. In the sections page, yeah.
You said that students will automatically have a special program assignment on the minor dual language program. What if they're withdrawn from the section? Would automatically exit the student program?
Once you take them out of that section, since we're excluding those sections, yeah, then that student would be part of that count. But you might want to make sure that the special program is removed from the student, because I do think it's going to attach to the section and the student. Any other questions? So if you can think of any special programs that you think need to be pushed out, just for your own internal reporting purposes, let me know. If it would benefit everybody, then I could push it down. House Bill 57, we kind of touched on earlier in our opening session. So you're going to start seeing in our communications, we're going to, I hate it as PSU because that makes me think PowerSchool University. But things that apply to both LEA and charters, you'll see that labeled as public school unit. The other thing is NCVPS. The other part of House Bill 57 was NCVPS is now classified as a program, where it's kind of being, are we an LEA or are we a program? Are we an LEA or are we a program?
So,
What?
are you gonna add them as DPI-CVPS?
Add them. No, okay, so that's not a special program. Don't confuse that. Yeah, that's not part of the special program. So you all know we've been working on cross LEA forever, right? In CVPS, like we're really pushing, that's like our two top priorities, the upgrade and this cross LEA. We've seen so much of it work. Like when we're in testing, we see a lot of things work, but then we'll request one little change to be made and then something else breaks that's already been working before, right? It's the same, it's been the same with every project, but we are really trying to get the cross LEA piece working. So NCVPS is part of our weekly calls. We've got working sessions. We've actually got 2 working sessions scheduled every week. We've got a 2-hour one on a Wednesday and a 1-hour session on Tuesday where they go in and we work through cross LEA. And I know it's not as important for you guys, but it is important to NCVPS. So I am going to be reaching out. Anybody in here part of the pilot that we started with NCVPS, I had 6 districts. And out of all y'all, anyway, I'll be reaching out to try to start a pilot for fall so that hopefully we can get this pushed out by January. But by NCVPS being recognized as a program, that gives them a little wiggle room to where they can create their own student information system. And that's what we don't want to happen, because you're going to have to continue doing what you're doing now, manually entering grades here, or, you know, if we make this happen the way it needs to happen, they'll be aligned, just like if you were to transfer somebody to her or cross enroll. Questions? Anybody interested in being on a pilot? Because I'm sure some of my 6 have no interest. Okay.
We have some questions on the website for the dual language immersion.
Okay. All right.
They're wanting to know, are you going to be pushing down the DLI for the special programs?
Mhm.
Okay, so they wait on you, they don't create it themselves. You're going to push it down for the
Yep.
press control.
So part of the reason, and this was a question from the webinar, we're streaming live over here. Early on, before we pushed this out, we had to first go in and pull a report showing who all is already using a dual language immersion special program, because we didn't want to duplicate something that you might be using in your district for other purposes. So that's part of the reason we're going to put NCDPI in front of it. But what we found when we pulled that report is nobody really had the dual language immersion special program, but we found that districts had like French dual language immersion, Spanish dual language immersion. So I reached out to those few districts that were doing that, and the response I got was, I don't know why that's in there. So nobody was really using it. But yes, we are going to push that down, so no need in creating that.
And that'll be available in the sections for them to select. Do you know what the name of it's going to be?
NCDPI dual language immersion. Legislative class size, take a screenshot of this, keep it. These numbers change every year, and they're going to continue changing for the next 2 years. Is that right? Did you want to add to that other?
I just
Okay.
want to make sure they could hear us on the webinar.
So this year, legislative class size, the average class size for kindergarten through 3rd grade, I need to change that, public school unit, shall not exceed 19 students. Last year it was what, 18? I think. This report, I had several meetings last week just so I know what our deadline is, because the last 2 times it's been back and forth. And we have got to get this report submitted by the time they need it, which is going to be, I believe it's November 30th.
Now, is this per section or is it average?
Well, it's 2. You've got the average at the top, and then your individual class, your individual section can't exceed 22 students. So you're going to have access to this report, and it may not be 100% accurate once you run it the first time, only because the finance file can't get delivered. So we provide you with access to run the report so that you can look at the numbers, but you might have some teacher data that's not right, because I can't submit the payroll file until the end of October, right? So once the payroll file from October comes through, that usually comes to DPI. I think we get it by the 5th of the month. So we won't even have the finance file for the month of October until November 5th. So then November 5th, we're going to send that file over to PowerSchool. Then you'll have to go back and rerun your reports and make sure it captured all the teacher corrections. And then you're going to submit it to us by November 30th. And I am working with leadership on trying to make our deadline like the 15th of December. You're going to see some changes to this year's class size report. There will be more exceptions. There's also going to be some K-8 reports in addition to the K-3 reports, because we learned that the SAR was being submitted for part of the report card file, data, right? And because we want to get away from the SAR, then we had to build something in this class size to capture the K-8, since K-8 is reported on the school report card. So I don't know what the requirements are gonna be behind that, but I did ask PowerSchool to go ahead and make those available. And it may be that we use something else for school report cards for one more year, but at least we have those reports in there ahead of time, if we learn that these are the numbers that have to be pulled or provided. Questions? New discipline codes, this is something else I pushed out last week or the week before. We talked about this some last year at the end of the year, but these 4 discipline codes have been added to your instances. The only thing that might change, it seems like there's a possession of controlled substance. There's another one about marijuana that was already out there. And because however it was labeled doesn't match this, we may tweak it a little bit. Yes?
Yeah, there's one up there that's just possession of controlled substance other.
Yes.
There's one that's possession of controlled substance with nothing afterwards. If you actually look at that one, you do the drop down, it doesn't have anything about opioid, it just says
Yep.
possession of controlled substance.
And then when you click on it, that's when you see opioid.
Right.
So, and I went back to her after I added them because the reason that is, it's because I ran out of room. The field length wouldn't allow me to put everything I wanted to. So I went back and I brought it to her attention that this is gonna be a problem because all you're gonna see is the first part and you're just gonna pick it.
Unless the person that's putting it in knows that 118 is.
Yep. So these may change, but they're out there. Now, what I need help with is I swear last year, I remember, and I couldn't find it in any presentations, but I was thinking there were 2 more. Does anybody remember us talking about any other discipline codes that need to be added? I was thinking there was something about harassment or racial something. Do you remember?
I'll have to look. We had a case where I had to choose something that was not exactly right, and all the harassments have sexual or, like different kinds of things, bullying or whatever, but there wasn't, like, our situation wasn't really any of those. So there isn't like a plain one.
Yeah. Let me know if you can. I was thinking there's at least 1 or 2 more that's not on this list that we said we was gonna push out for you. Okay. This is also new. You don't have it yet because we've not built it. We've not created the report. But starting this year, we have to also report start and end dates for schools. So we've already got the start and end times out there. And I put all the information here if you need to review it. But this report's going to be due by April. So we're going to try to get this out in January. It shouldn't be tough. I just don't know how we want to create it. It should be as simple as going in and looking at your first end session day and your last end session day. And that's what we're going to do for this year. So this information already has to be submitted for this year. Okay? But we're going to figure out a way to pull that ourselves, and we're going to have this report so that you can approve it for next year.
Justin,
Yes.
when they send that out, I know this time it got sent to the superintendents, only to the superintendents. Well, sometimes that may not get to people who actually have to check.
When they sent what out?
The dates, the start and end dates. I don't know what department sent that out, but it only went to the superintendent.
Right.
If they wait, I mean, it was sent out one day and it was due like in a day or 2 after the report went, or the request went out. But if they've got to send it to other people to check it, then we need to know about that too, whoever it's going to be done, which is usually your PowerSchool people.
What's happening last night?
Which, I mean, this is, if you're gonna put it in PowerSchool and actually be submitted, then that takes care of that, but this time it didn't go out in a timely enough manner. But some people didn't get it until the chatter went around the Google group.
Right.
That.
And I shot it out as quick as I heard about it, but the problem is I heard about it maybe 2 weeks too late. I didn't know it was in the works. But I will say, since Rosalind has left, I've joined a couple new boards within the agency, just so I'm more aware of what's going on. There was boards that I should have been attending that I didn't even know existed. But I'm hoping I can start getting information at the same time as other people do so that I can get it to you all quicker. Other questions? All right. This is one of the items that apparently has been a need, and I didn't know about it until recently. I had a meeting last week. There should be, it says new for 1920, but from what I understand, this has been a law for 2 years, the ACT endorsements, and we currently don't have that. So I'm just throwing that out there because I don't know what this is going to look like. I just know it's a need. We need to have ACT endorsements where students meet, there's a minimal score they have to make. And then that's supposed to be attached to all of our current existing grad plans. So I'll let you know more on that as we continue to meet.
So you're saying that kids can't graduate unless they meet these minimum?
No, they just can't have that endorsement, whatever. I think it's going to be displayed on the transcript, just like your GLE, your math rigor. Anybody using math rigor? Do we know? Yeah, but, okay. We don't know who at DPI, if we are, well, I mean, is anybody really tracking it, worried about it? Because we met last week and we don't even know internally if it's still a need.
You mean like making sure that you go beyond math 3?
Right.
Oh, yeah, we.
All right, ACT release of info. This is something we actually signed off on last week to get this in PowerSchool. So this is something else you'll see coming soon. There's already, you know, the release of records or whatever. But this is going to have, you'll know when you get to the page, it's going to spell out. I am the parents signing off on giving permission for test scores to be released to colleges. Yes.
So now we're going to have to.
So that needs better wording.
Amen.
Because we are, in our district, we're always sort of battling with these types of tests, SAT, ACT, because who owns the score? Now, I've been pushing for pulling the ACT data that's in PowerSchool that are the students that the state tests at the 11th grade, okay? But sometimes we're also provided, or College Board will give files to our testing department that has just ACT or SAT data. In my opinion, what this says also is that that student owns that score because they paid to take that test. Should it be included in files that are presented across the district to use for analysis and trending? So does that checkbox mean released to colleges or can be pulled for information to be used in the district? I mean, am I splitting hairs here?
No, you're good.
That's something we're gonna have to follow up on.
Because we've been told by at least my rack tells me all the time, the testing, like, we're not supposed to put testing data in.
Right.
Because it doesn't belong to us. It's not part of the kid's permanent file beyond like what, like even the one that we have to give because the state said so. We're not supposed to share that anywhere.
Yep.
You put it in for your testing because a lot of your accountability for seniors depends on what scores they've made on these ACT testing.
Right.
However, but you have to indicate that it does not print on transcripts. Right?
Right.
That's what it cannot do, is
Right.
show up on transcripts. So you're saying that it should,
No, it still won't print on transcripts.
so how are we supposed to be releasing that information?
Yeah, what's the
If it's not on the
plan?
transcript, what do you want?
I get with accountability about this.
Yeah, what's the point of the checkbox? Because doesn't the student, when they take the ACT, they have to go in, they can.
Right.
They determine
They
where it
determine
goes.
why, I mean, who's gonna be pulling that information? Is that DPI is gonna give it to ACT? Of which parents have signed off on the
It's
release?
a good question.
I mean, and are we gonna have a form or something that we have to have parents fill out?
We will get more info.
Yeah.
This is all
Yeah.
pretty much Friday. Thursday and Friday is when we heard about this.
Because any other ACT tester information other than what's given in the 11th grade is going to be a manual entry by a data manager, which could contain errors.
Yep.
Well,
That was the whole point of it to start with.
not only that, but in the last few years, we've been told specifically not to have our kids fill in anything beyond basic demographic data. Like, they're not allowed to do the questionnaire for what your grades are, what you want to do with your life, what kind of things you're into. If they want to do that stuff, they have to go out separately and do it online. We're not allowed, for the state versions of these tests, to let them do that part of it. Like, we are sent separate instructions specifically to not, like, just name, date of birth, address. Maybe email address, but like, that's it. That's all we're allowed to give out. So
I'll get more info on this and get it out to you. I just wanted to pass on everything I have picked up lately.
you wanted to share the,
Yep. At least when you hear about it next, you'll know a little bit.
but Justin said.
Okay, now I'm locked.
Yeah, no doubt.
Do you know much about the allotment board?
Yeah, can we not get a different acronym on that?
I know, I don't like that. I think I'm right here. I've not been involved in the meetings. Do what? But this is, from what I understand, it's a way to track the enrollment history of students coming from charters and students going to charters.
Is this Graham's news?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's gonna be a lot.
Talking
Yes.
about charters, can I bring that report to you to try to get them to,
That's why I put it on here, because I wanted to see how this aligned with what we've talked about,
I think that sounds like
what we wanted.
With us not letting them go, but y'all not letting them go either.
well,
No, the money needs,
we've developed a standardized report in way that is, we can do it as a SQL report, that if everybody would put it in, you could click that one report and it would print out all the information that needs to be presented to a district for billing. Because we deal with so many charter
I
schools.
would love that.
Yes, that's what we talked about, is so
Yeah.
that we could run it, finance department, we hand it to finance, and they go, all right, here it is, instead of the back and forth of when charter gives a report one way, another charter.
Some of our charter schools weren't even, some of the ones we deal with weren't even providing student numbers.
Yeah.
No lie, they were not even giving us student numbers. And we're trying to get some structure around it, and I can't imagine that this isn't something everyone would love to do, as well as the Office of Charter.
Yeah, because we have a charter school who actually contacted Franklin County in West Virginia asking for payment.
So
So he didn't even have the right contact information.
the flip side is that if we can get everybody, are you saying you want everybody in Wayne County to be using that, or you want the whole state to be using that?
I just think it's something we should present to the entire state as an option.
Because I have no less than, I've got at least 3 different systems that I have to worry with. And that's just what I've picked back up since I'm having to take it back over.
Yeah, see, I think it helps.
And everybody asks for different things in a different order on a different day.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation that needs to happen between student information and the Office of Charter Schools and how billing is handled. Because in a district our size, she dealt with 52 or 56 different charter schools. And what she was doing, literally, was taking these files, some of them came in on a Word document, some of them came in an Excel sheet, some of them were 3 names listed in an email. And she was taking all of this information and putting it in an Excel spreadsheet. And half the time, she didn't even have the same data. She didn't have complete data in a lot of cases. So she was spending a week's worth of time just getting it in a format that she could then try to determine if she owed, who she owed.
right.
So tell us about the report.
So maybe Maybe this report will help. But if you don't care, I would have access to your report then, right?
Yeah.
And DPI, 6 or 7, okay. I'll try to put it in Lori's hands and see if
I'll
that,
send you the name.
okay. Do that and I'll let the people that are working on this report, I'll let the folks working on this report look at what you have already here.
It's
And we'll
just
compare.
really simple, demographic information in a standard format to present for parents.
Okay. GDV changes, I added that here too, but we've already talked about it. That last one, we've talked about, but because this is brand new and we're gonna get this started like soon, I wanted to see if there are other items that we might need to add to this. So because the law says we have to use if you use PowerSchool, then you have to use our uniform transcript, right? So everybody should be grading the same way if you're using this transcript. So I'm working with curriculum on developing a report. So the initial request was to block everything out, lock it down, lock it down, lock it down. Well, we don't want to lock everything down to where you can't get in and do your job. So I said, well, what if we have a report instead, kind of like the PMR, right? To where every month you go in, you run this report, and it kicks back and it says, no, there's an exception here. This is a fatal because you've got a student taking this course with this course code with too many added values attached to it, or in the historical grades, right? So we talked about this last year. I know this is old, but we're getting this in the works. So what we're looking at is pulling grade scale type so that we know everybody's using the right grade scale, added value, and earned credit. So if any of those aren't aligned to what it should be according to the course code, then it'll be flagged on this report. Are there other items that would be helpful
So
that we could tie back to that uniform transcript?
when we put in transfer credit from out of state or whatever, we're supposed to be assigning a grade scale to it? Even though we're just entering stuff in?
No. I'll have to consider that. Maybe that TR will help us.
I mean, the TR should be getting added
Right.
regardless,
So it wouldn't look at the TRs.
so.
Yeah.
So,
That's
once
one-
this comes into being, it's gonna go out and look at historical marks for kids that have transferred into us from other places. I can't even imagine how many potential
What it would
issues
look
we're
like.
gonna have with that. So are you telling
In
us
the-
to go in and change historical data?
No. When we create the report, we can fix it to where it's looking at today moving forward and not looking at old term IDs.
Okay, but, even at that, going forward, once this goes into effect, and we have a child come in the next school year, when we transfer in that information, and their prior school has done something else, or they're coming to us from a charter school or whatever,
Mhm.
that doesn't have to abide by this, we're still gonna end up with error.
Don't all public schools use the NC 10 grade scale for high school? So,
You use MC 10 point, right? Charter schools have to as well.
yeah, for all high schools, transcripts on high
But
school.
so I've got an example. We have a kid, and I think if I don't understand what you're saying, stop. But I have a kid who, we were looking through transcripts, and the transcript that came with him from another North Carolina school, I don't remember which school, shows an incorrect grade, like he got a 70 something, but it's showing 3 points for the GPA, or he got a 70 and it's not showing his passing. So
Right.
would this catch that?
Yes.
And then tell me, hey, this is incorrect somewhere on the transcript, fix it. But then because it came from a different school,
I'm with you.
I fix it, and then theoretically moving forward, it should be fixed everywhere? Or would I need to go back to the school that derped it the first time and say, I need you to fix it so that I can re-pull it? Is that what you're asking?
Well,
Along those lines?
I think so.
Kind of, yeah, but like coming from Lawrence Academy, which is a private school. If they're
They
giving
would
these
for the-
kids GPA extra credits on their transcript, that is beyond what they should have based on North Carolina public schools.
But are they using PowerSchool?
Well, you don't, you
As a
don't.
private, it doesn't matter what system, if
You
we
would
get a
be manually
transcript,
entering
whether it's
Right.
PowerSchool or not, that tells us that they've taken an honors class and they've gotten an A, so it's a 4.0 plus an added of 1 point instead of the 0.5 that it should be.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do?
So you're manually entering those, right? And you should be
If
using the
it's
TR
not
code.
PowerSchool to PowerSchool, it's something else to PowerSchool.
Right. So we could build it as part of the requirements to ignore TR codes. Anything you enter manually and you put TR, then those will be excluded.
So we should leave them with the higher
I guess.
added GPA?
Well, no,
We
that
can change
should,
those schools.
if they've got a freshman, if they have a cohort entry date that falls within the +1 point, which most of those kids should be graduated by now.
Right, they're not gonna have that, they're gonna be more recent.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if they're in the correct more recent cohort, if their grade entry 9 date says that it's only 0.5, then it should tweak that, right?
Yes.
That's how it's.
Now, if you do a manual entry, that's great, then take one.
No, it's based on the course code.
Yeah, policy.
So when it
That's
runs,
policy.
yeah. Right, that's
But
why they
if you
have to
got
put
it-
it in
if
that
it's
way,
doing-
because if they put it in incorrectly
If
based on
you've
the
got
course
the
code,
kids
it's gonna
grade
be
9
still in
entry
that
date
way.
correctly
So they
outside of
can't-
the +1
they have to
cohort
put it
for
in
honors,
based on NC public
and it's
schools.
still adding a full
it's only
point instead of a half a
Sure.
point, that might be something that
Our course code works.
But it doesn't automatically assign the GPA and the added. When you do a manual entry,
They use their
you
course
have to
code
tell us what the
right?
GPA
And they're different from ours, and
and
they
added
can enter that way.
consideration is, so it knows what to put
Or I think you can
unweighted
enter-
versus weighted.
You can enter the
Enter
course name.
without
It's not something that's automatically calculated.
Yeah, so what she's saying is if you enter our course code, our equivalent course code, then on the back end, it's gonna go out and it's gonna look, and the enterprise controller is gonna flip it back to what it should be automatically. But if you're just manually entering and you do the name only, like the course title, and you don't do a number, then it's gonna leave it as whatever you enter it as.
It does fix it. Put the course code in.
Yeah, yeah.
Put it on.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start working on this, and I'll add this to our monthly webinar agenda, so that we can kind of share what we're thinking and get your feedback as we go. Questions? Okay. So for the rest of the afternoon, we've got about 15 minutes. How are you on the count?
Francine Dillingham had a question about, we moved on since we read her, back to it.
Okay.
It was about the teacher to students that you were talking about. It was a few slides back.
Teacher, student,
It might have been on the,
ask her for clarification. Is either in field, out of field, or
yeah,
class
it
size.
was class size. She said, GS 115C-301C shows different numbers for each grade level. For kindergarten, 1 teacher per 18 students. For first grade, 1 teacher per 16.
Yeah.
For
And
second
that's-
grade, and she said,
They can't-
so is it 1 to 19 for each section, each kindergarten, or 1, 2, and 3?
So what she's looking at has been amended. Like that's our goal over the next 3 years, I think. So what she's looking at is where we're gonna end up, but we're staging it. So each year, the numbers are gonna change until we're where she's talking about. And so for right now, the average can't be over 19 for the whole district. And then any section cannot exceed 22 students unless it's got more than 1 teacher. Yes?
I have a question about the others. And I know we're not quite there yet, but I just want to ask this.
Okay,
Is going to Signal 6 part of the upgrade?
no. We were,
Because you know Signal 5 is no longer supported
Right.
because of the buttons and flash.
I had that on our schedule to make that happen by the upgrade, but the problem is with all the priorities in the agency, they pretty much said that we couldn't get the SQL 6 pushed up far enough to where it could happen at the same time as the upgrade. So that is gonna happen, like, after we upgrade, that's gonna be one of the items they start working on.
Okay.
And I'm hoping we can get it in
So
there
what
by
do you
December.
have, I mean, does it have to go through a whole nother testing?
It's not as intense though. I mean, when we upgraded to 5, it didn't take long
Right.
in QA. Yes.
Okay.
me to ask if there are any changes in how resource students will be scheduled.
Good. I got clarification on that. We've been battling this, 2 years, trying to get an answer on how we schedule pullouts, EC students. It's not required. I talked to the right people. It is not required to schedule pullouts unless it's spelled out in the IEP. So you schedule based on what's in their IEP. That's simple enough. Okay, I don't want to start on the upgrade yet. But did you get accounts created for them?
I have 40 of them.
Okay. Once we get back from lunch, we're going to jump in the PowerSchool upgrade discussion, and that's going to take us through the end of the day. We'll kind of run through the items, and we did this at our last meetup. I showed you everything that's coming in PowerSchool, right? The only thing we didn't really hit on much was the contacts, because at that point we didn't know what in the world we were going to do. So a majority of our afternoon is going to be looking in the contacts and coming up with a plan. I want to get feedback from you guys and what we're going to do over the next few months in regards to contacts. So any questions about anything other than the upgrade? How many charters do we have in the room today? 2. I need you all. 3. Y'all need to put messages out there talking about how good this stuff is, so we can get more charters.
They're probably all.
Let's see, what are some other things I can think of? So the EOI contacts, I've shared this, but not everybody's heard it. We're going to start pulling that as our list of people to communicate with. In our Gov delivery system, we've set up EOI contacts, like there's SIS coordinators, there's principals, there's superintendents. So I've created actually Yolanda did. We've got a EOI contacts list. So emails are getting sent to those people now. They're grouped together. So whoever's in that EOI contacts is going to be our PowerSchool go-to people. Okay. So make sure you keep that up to date. Anything else? You think, Mason? I can't think of anything else other than upgrade. So
They want to know what time to come back.
the
webinar people.
1:10. 1:10. So we'll go ahead and break for lunch if you guys don't have any questions, and we'll come back around 1:10 and get started. Should I end it or keep it going? Oh, I can pause it. Yes.
Dawn, I'm throwing on this one. Your summer between July 1st and 15th. I usually shoot 12 days.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
As
just
long
want to
as
make
it's
sure it's
14:30.
before 30.
Yeah.
But,
I think it is last
Yeah.
Share the live stream. Yeah.
You gotta get better at restating questions.
Yeah. I don't think it's more than a bit over this. They said they could hear.
And that'll get you about.
It's hard for them to hear. They can hear me in the.
You don't have to have 2 people as far as PowerSchool is concerned. You just have to have 1 person. So they're allowing you to.
I noted that they can't override certain because I wouldn't see any second.
Who also we said we would get one of the things we specifically said we would get back with them is ACT score. And how do they get that score to the student? Is that a different form that has to be filled out?
You go for a
And then,
Well, I'd ask them that would be nice if maybe for the afternoon, I can put it at the Google Docs, I can share out, and they can put their questions and comments in there, so they can follow back up.
Jill's gonna come this afternoon.
The what?
To take notes.
Which?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to answer the questions, take notes, and set up the staff accounts, and still try to listen. So Pam said she would, Jill said she would be happy to help, so Jill.
So what they were saying about the override was they need a way to override the inaccurate endorsements. So normally you override it if it should be, if the student did earn it, right? That's the only time you override. But they're saying there's times where it's labeling them as completed when really they didn't.
You're talking about CT concentrator completion.
GLE. Our system.
Be nice to they have like a document, type of questions in with free, they come in and capture the questions. Are we likely, you can still ask them, but if they type in there, we can come up with a document, a Q&A document from these sessions and then push it out.
Yep.
Okay, I have a technical question.
Okay.
Okay, we're working with Immersion to do logins through the ID. And I had to build a report out of PowerSchool for them. The ID number is pulling is that there's a field called ID that has their old NCY's number in there, and then we have the state PER.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
PER ID number. So they're telling me that I need to take the ID field that they're pulling, needs to be what the state number is. Are we allowed to change that?
No, Tessa, they can't change the ID, right? In PowerSchool, the student,
Screen, the
not,
teacher screen.
you know, it's just ID in the student table.
Student internal ID or student number?
No, the teacher ID.
A teacher number?
So we're gonna have to
Because
log
there's a
into
field that
something you
says
got access
ID,
to.
and those,
Are you talking about DDA?
it hasn't gone to DDA.
Where are we
Just looking
talking
at
about
information.
from last time? It still goes to that.
That's information page. ID.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna use?
If you've got to test it,
Except that you probably.
what do you want to give it if I don't like it?
Yeah.
I don't have a login, let's test it.
Which doesn't
Yeah, I'm with you.
for us to be able to do that.
I have logins to all the things.
But are you saying in DPI 6,
Can't update it.
we're not gonna get, no, I'll be able to get yours, right?
No, you
You
can't,
know, adding
like us.
the student field value, there's also a staff field.
So we have to log into one of those
And that's
databases
the
as
field
Justin.
that they needed.
But I don't wanna display another
And I
district.
can just do that.
Well, all we're gonna have to do is show the parent stuff. We don't have to show the kid, but just pull the kid up and go to contact. But we're gonna have to log in one of those databases as you.
No, they added PowerSchool.
And I don't know that data, so
PowerSchool.
it's just gonna be a shot in the dark, let's have a
CTE
conversation.
training.
Okay.
Because mine is S17B.
I'm gonna go get me Japan.
Because I know.
Thank you, Ray. I'm not hungry.
No, you got it. Strategic plan, you got it.
Snack, soda, anything?
So I know.
I'll run and grab something out of this little room.
Oh.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
What charter are you at?
Okay. I'm assuming most of
Nice to
you
meet
here
you.
are really universities.
Cheryl.
Okay, so I'm the cyber person.
Cheryl.
And a lot of this stuff is different. I understand it from being in the brick and mortar for so long. A lot of this stuff is different. But I guess the main question I want to ask you is more information about you said 20 volunteers for NCVPS stuff. I don't know how we're not NCVPS. We're outside offer.
Okay.
So I didn't know.
What's your
if that
district?
was- We're 008.
Okay.
And so I didn't know how that was feed into the plans. And now the other part of it is a lot of what we talk about scheduling and enrollment. We have 3 different systems that we use. They have PowerSchool, which is on the state. But we also have Edgenuity that does our scheduling, and then we have OnBase that does our enrollments. And
So
Thank you. Anybody and everybody.
are LEA sending students to you?
I mean, I can get this done.
Or are you your own?
well, those students in LEAs, which was another thing with that report that they were talking about the charter school reporting. I think that particular report would help me out a lot, because I have 114 different districts that we build for the students being online.
Okay.
And so with that, they want this coming school year, they're gonna want every PM line. They're gonna want some information saying, hey, yeah, this kid is in this district before we pay this bill.
I got you.
And so I think that form that they were talking about would help me out a lot.
So what's 008?
It's
What's the name?
North Carolina Cyber Academy. And we're in.
Okay. So you take students in from all.
Yeah, and seeing that, and I've only been there for 3 weeks, so I'm learning the virtual curve here. Because, like I said, we have 3 different systems that we're working with. And the biggest part that I really don't like is the on-base part, because they give a chance to enroll students. But we don't officially count them as enrolled until they finish the process of getting through approval to be in the online.
I will support all I can.
So they can enroll on 825, but they may not finish the process until September. And so their E1 date with us won't be until they finish the process.
Right.
And so that's you know, that's kind of iffy. And that's the reason why I don't like that, because that kind of skews our numbers on the head count.
Yeah.
A lot. But
Can it be done remotely?
and I did have a question that my principal definitely wanted me to ask, because we are K through 12. Does having that 3 school system bother us anyway? Would that hurt us anyway in having K through 12? And we have them broken up to where we have high school, and then we have.
For what? For which report?
For everything.
Oh, no.
Well,
No, that's fine.
so we just have to function as just being three different
Oh,
schools.
he's still busy talking.
So in PowerSchool, you're gonna be reported, it'll be K-12, right?
Okay, well, K through 12, right. But see, there's some reports that you do in elementary that you don't do in high school,
Right.
vice versa,
Right.
as well as middle school. So we're gonna have to do that reporting as well.
Yep.
And she wanted to know if is that a hindrance to us being broken up like that, and the fact that we do use 3 different systems to do one, because I don't understand why we just don't do PowerSchool.
I start to say all your students have to be in PowerSchool, right?
Yeah, everything is done in PowerSchool. It's just like Edgenuity does scheduling and grades, and we take it, and just like in CVPS. So think of Edgenuity as in CVPS. And then OnBase is basically for us like dual enrollment.
Just a second.
So I guess
Yeah.
Did you say you needed to work on some stuff? You needed me to help you work on some stuff?
No, just run the lunch, I think.
Okay.
I'll grab you when you get back,
Okay.
before we start. Okay, so then they're scheduling and sending it back to PowerSchool.
right.
Yeah, then I need you to be in this pilot.
Okay.
And where's our notes? Are you taking any notes?
I have you.
Let's put down that 008 needs to be part of this
Part of
cross LEA pilot. Because it'd be good if we could get you on the same. Get everything done through PowerSchool.
I don't know, but they switched this year. My understanding they were doing Nexus previous years. And so this year they just started doing it. I don't know how quickly they're going to switch it.
Right.
True. You switch.
PowerSchool, yeah.
Yeah. But All right.
Yeah, I'll pull you in and then,
The principal, well, the director of operations is Christina Robinson. And director of academics is going to be Denita Blunt.
okay.
Nathan Curry is.
We'll have to connect.
Okay. And Marcos for lunch. Pam sent San Marcos for lunch. Do you want me to bring you a new bag? You sure?
Yeah. So can you log in to DPI 6?
Bird seed or something? Foods you eat like a bird. Which one?
Let's do Guilford.
I don't know which one there. You have to give me a number. I don't even, you know what? I don't even know what. What do they start with? Are they on NCAA Cloud yet? The icons? Are they going to be? Because we have 7, but we don't have 6.
Maybe. NCDRPS.
CDRPS. 1.
Yeah.
About the contact stuff, you and I had talked a while back about me being somebody who would import all of our stuff in.
Yep.
I would be pleased to do that still. We don't use the North Carolina field stuff right now because we don't have any like auto send or any of that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of our data in another place that has more than PowerSchool has ever, has fields for. But if now there's going to be more fields, we would put our stuff in PowerSchool.
Right.
But so we wouldn't be doing a transfer of our data over from the old fields. We would just be totally a new in.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and we also went online and we're doing our registration.
Got my email test.
That's all we're doing.
Let me make sure.
Sorry. Did you ask me?
All right, for the guys online, can you put your hands up if you can hear us? Okay, good. All right. Okay, we're going to start back up. Before we get into the upgrade, Jill has some things she wants to share. So she'll do that now and then we'll jump in.
Welcome back. This is a little impromptu. I'm going to add a slide to this slide deck in just a few minutes. But my name's Jill Darrow. Several of you seen me before, worked with me before, but I am one of the coordinators for Connecting Communities of Education Stakeholders. So that is a combined conference. It's the old home-based CIS conference combined with another state agency conference. A third of the content at that conference is wrapped around PowerSchool. So for data managers and PowerSchool coordinators. With the deficit of Tiffany no longer being with us, she is really the one who spearheaded the content for data managers and coordinators. I am asking for volunteers to help with that effort. Also, the data or the feedback from the conference was that there's not enough content. So I wanted to know what kind of content do we need so we can go out and see if we can find that content, or do we need to talk to PowerSchool to make sure that that content's there. So the dates this year are a little bit later than what we're typically used to. Home base used to be in February, and CCSA, which is the combined conference, was in March. But this year, March Madness is going to be in Greensboro in March. So our conference is going to be a little bit later. It's actually going to be the first full week of April. It's going to be right before most spring breaks. Now, we do know that there are a handful of districts that do have their spring break a little bit the week prior, but those were the only dates that we could get, or we could get the first week of August, or the first week of January. First week of January, first week of August, or first week of April. So first week of April seems to fit best in our timeline. So if there is anyone that would be interested in joining a subcommittee, please let Justin or myself know. We are going to start that planning pretty quickly at the beginning of September for the conference in April.
So you said first full week?
Yes.
So the 6th through the.
So it's the first full week of April, so it's the 6th through the 9th.
Spring break. Spring break.
Yeah. That's all I had, Justin.
Okay. Yeah, we're staying. Okay, upgrades. I don't want to spend too much time going over the new features. We discussed most of these at our last meetup. And I provided release notes, videos. So I don't want to talk about everything that we already have discussed. I want to spend the afternoon talking about contacts. But we are upgrading to 19.4.2. We have, and I shared this via email with you guys, we've pulled in as many resources as we can to help test this, because initially we were told by our own QA team that once PowerSchool gave us access to the test server, it would take them 6 weeks, like 4 to 6 weeks to test it. We don't have 4 to 6 weeks. So we have brought on Russell. We've got some on-loan employees from other departments in the division. We've got our QA team. We've got how many, Russell? 6 coordinators?
6 businesses, which give us 6 coordinators, and we have 3.
I think I added them up, and we've got around 20 people working on this upgrade where normally we have 6. So I do believe this deadline is doable. In testing so far, our QA team has started with the stuff that they always know is broken when we upgrade. So they started with the transfer of records and transfer students, and all of that stuff has been passing, which is probably the first time ever. Normally that stuff fails, we get it to PowerSchool, we let them work on that while we continue testing. But like I said, the stuff that's usually the toughest has been passing so far. So that's a plus. So the upgrade date, we are still looking at August 16th, which is next Friday. The features, I don't want to go over all these again, but again, there's bug fixes, grade book block that you all love, right? And then the student contacts. I want to put that in there. Test is, we're going to get you all in the NC training. I don't know if we have enough accounts. I think we have 40.
Yeah.
40? I'd be pushing it because I counted 50 earlier. It's okay. So just know we've got a large team working on this, and we want to meet that deadline. Go back one more. There we go.
Is this just stuff added at the end of the original presentation?
Yeah, you'll have to refresh. I added them because I didn't know how much we wanted to go into this afternoon. So I had a separate slideshow and I just moved stuff over that I knew we'd be able to cover. So everybody's familiar with your own contacts, and I want to talk about something that she talked to me about before we left for lunch. By old contacts, I mean you got your demographics, and then the NC custom page. So she brought up that she doesn't even use the NC custom page, right? She's entering all of her information. She thinks everything's going to migrate fine, which it will. However, I added a bullet here. That NC custom page is used. We pull from that for multiple reports. So as we start this discussion, I want you to keep that in mind because that has to be kept up to date. NC custom contacts has to be kept up to date until we pull the plug, right? So if you're not using it, that means some of the reports we're doing internally, and this came up last week in a meeting we had, because I pulled some people into the room who are involved with reporting, and I wasn't even aware of what all reports we're pulling from NC Custom Contacts. But it's enough to where we absolutely cannot stop using this custom page until we're to a point where we have clean data to migrate or import. So I just listed a couple. I know right now we're using NC Custom Contacts. We're using fields from there for TIMs and ECATs, and there were several others. Do you remember, Tess? Which reports Lori threw out there?
These are the two biggest ones that were.
Yeah, I just know it was enough to where we couldn't do it. We couldn't stop using this page. So for those of you who aren't using it, you need to be using it. So, I mean, I don't know about TIMs for charter schools. So
Where exactly are you talking?
NC Custom Contacts,
The student contact.
student contact, yeah.
Under NC information.
The one where you have to, it's got the red and green.
That one.
So,
So this is a custom page?
So North Carolina created that page. And then PowerSchool, PowerSchool liked our page, so they made that core. But the way this conversion is going to happen, the data is in two different tables. So that information on the custom contacts page that you're looking at is not going to migrate. And I'm going to hit that on the next slide. So as of right now, there's a record for each student contact. So if Tessa and I are brother and sisters and we go to two different schools, she's our mom, right? She's a contact for her, and she's a contact for me. That's two records. So there's going to be a lot of cleanup. Hey, what you doing?
Sorry.
No, you're good. The new contact screen, it's got some new functionality. And we're going to show you all the changes here in a minute, but there's going to be one record per contact. One full list.
Someone's asking for.
but we'll be able
list of
to import all of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
because theoretically, we have all the contact information in a spreadsheet or somewhere, and so we should be able to suck it in.
Yeah, but it's not going to be easy.
Well, it is anything really.
No.
I'm sorry, I don't have this.
For now, I've got it, but yeah.
I can't hear you.
Refresh the,
No, I don't have the contact information in the spreadsheet.
right.
No, I know. And that's what we're here for. This is just, we're going to start discussions today.
Because of the way that we have to run the lottery or whatever, like, all of that stuff, the parents are entering it into a spreadsheet, and then I'm having to hand the key at this point. But because I already have that data in a spreadsheet, I'm hoping to be able to such a thing. So whoever
Is that usable?
Can we provide them with a list of
For your enrollment,
reports or data that you
enrollment,
Yeah.
So the next upgrade, this is gonna go away?
I'm gonna go through this slide. Yeah, if you'll hang tight for a couple slides, then we're gonna jump in and we're gonna show you what it's gonna look like. And we've got a plan, but I don't want us to stand up here and tell you what our plan is. I want you all to get in a group here in just a few minutes and look through some information that I'm gonna give you and have discussions on how this can or should move forward, or how your district feels comfortable moving forward with this. Go ahead and hit the next slide. Okay. So just so you know, the contact conversion is only going to migrate those 4 fields there: mother, father, guardian, and access accounts. We already know that it's going to bring over blank records, guardians that just have email addresses. There's going to be no name records. Nothing from the NC contacts page is going to migrate. Okay. But that's probably the information you want migrated. So that's where the cleanup and the import is going to take place. Yeah, sure. So we're going to log into one of our test sites up here, I think.
Will that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. I just went and looked at it.
Sandy is one of the ones. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we were talking about the contacts and nothing migrated from the North Carolina contact page. That is true. But your mother, your father, the guardian. If you change one of them on the demographic page, it'll change on the North Carolina page, it'll change on the new page. Change on the North Carolina page, it'll change on the demographic page, it'll change on the new page. Those have dual write capability and backwards compatibility.
Just the mother, father.
Just those, just mother, father, and guardian, nothing else.
So Sandy's one of the ones that's serving on our upgrade committee. She's one of the volunteer coordinators, so she's been involved in all the meetings we've had weekly. And she's also been in her test server and helped us with this. I mean, she's helped identify a lot of the problems we're now aware of, so I'm gonna let her speak to that.
So I told Justin I got it back today. I'm coming to help explain this to you guys. So I want to have a quick conversation about what the changes are, what the functional changes are, so that we can understand what happens, okay? It is a database structure change from wherever we're at now to 19.4.2. We are going to a relational change from a one-to-one in regards to parents and students and emergency contacts to a one-to-many. So what does that mean? Right now, when you look at the students table, you have one row for every student in your district, correct? Within that record, there are 3 fields that contain, well, there's multiple fields, but 3 sets that contain information around mother, father, and guardian. So when we convert, what's going to happen is those 3 fields from that table with that one student record comes out and goes into a table called person. Okay? So those 3 people in that one row are now 3 separate records in a new table called person. Notice, what do you see different on this page? Contacts. Before it said parents, right? When you click that search prior to the conversion, what you were searching was the list, a group of people who had an access account, right? Now this search is tied to that table that we just talked about called person, okay? As Justin and Russell said, the only thing that's going to convert is mother information on the demographic page, father information, and guardian information, along with access account information. So what's going to happen is people will be duplicated. Because if I am Michael's mother, and I also have an account to PowerSchool Parent Portal, I'm now listed twice. Okay? There'll be cleanup involved. Thank you for driving so lovely over there. You're welcome. This is sort of an overkill situation, but this could happen. Because if I have 4 kids and I have an access account, how many times am I created? 5. Okay? If I select, one way to clean this up, and I'm gonna kind of talk in circles here, so please stop me at any time, ask any questions, because I've been sitting there for a month trying to figure this out. If I do select by hand, I can then choose. Now, right here, let's talk about the information that's on this page. Because I think these were actually created by Russell importing some information, or did it just happen?
No, those were already there.
Okay, so when our stuff converts, all right, let's talk about what's going to be populated. Because there is only so much information in that demographic field for that mother or that father, right? If you don't have any address information, none of that's going to come over because it doesn't look at the kid's address. So the address is going to be blank. The phone number will be populated. The email address will not be populated because it's not associated with that mother, father, right? Now, anything in that guardian field comes over, typically it's email addresses, unless you put Uncle Joe can pick Johnny up. Guess what? That's going to convert. Any junk in that field is going to convert. And it comes over with an ID number and no name. So I can tell you for Sandy, as a district in Wade County, we are working on a report. And again, this will be conversations that Justin's talking about we're all having. We're going to work on a report that'll give us that information so the data manager can have it. And I'm going to delete everything in that guardian field because that's just one less thing I got to clean up. Because when it comes over, I'm not going to know who it belongs to because it's going to be mother-of-3@hotmail.com. I don't know who that is.
All right.
Ashley?
Only issue I see, I know, I got things that are pulling guardian email outside vendors. So my question is, if I was to delete, and I have the parents' emails, I have the custom field for those. But I also have the guardian email because of PS registration.
Mm-hmm.
If right before this upgrade, if I go in and wipe those email addresses out of that field before, like that Friday, and it comes back on, and then I dump them back into the field, is it going to?
Jump back in is not as easy as it might sound.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not saying it can't happen.
I mean, I'm just wondering, is if I delete them out so I don't have all those extra lines, can I re-import in the next Monday?
Yes, you can import back in, but let's talk a little bit too about the table, okay?
Okay.
Because remember I said you got person table that is a row for everybody, right? Then we also have a thing called person address, okay? Which is going to create a row for every address you enter. Then you've got a table called person phone number. Well, why is this? Well, because if me and my husband are in there and we live at the same address, you only need that address created one time, okay? So there's a series, there's a way that we can import it, and there's some templates, but we're gonna have to get out those IDs that now belong to those parents in that table, associate it, and put it back, okay? Yep, I've been sitting there for a month, y'all. So, back to what we were talking about, how to clean this up. Because, and another thing for me, when I'm sitting there looking at this, regardless, I mean, this is gonna be ugly. And there's no way around it. And it doesn't matter if we do it now, or if we do it at Christmas, or if we do it next summer. Guess what? We're gonna be sitting in the same spot. And we gotta do it. Because my people still have to go in and touch all these records and enter the information that's missing. The good news is, we still have the North Carolina page. It doesn't go away. There might be some time, this may just shudder, but there might be some time where they've got to update both pages. It's reality. For those of us who are using online enrollment, we'll talk about that in just a minute. If I were to decide that Elizabeth and and the one right underneath it were the same person, I could click those boxes. Can you select them for me? Then it opens up down here, the select function, and there's consolidate contacts. How many of you have to do this sometimes with staff, consolidate users? Okay, same process. But if you choose it, it goes to the page, and then you have to determine which records you're gonna keep, which is gonna be the master record. If it is the record that is associated with an account, it'll have a checkbox, a green check mark. I think it's suggested that you always choose that one as the master, or you'll lose the association to the parent portal account for the student. Sorry, y'all. So you can choose to consolidate all data or keep master only. So this needs a lot of concentration and a lot of thought. Okay? Now, so let's don't do it.
Not yet.
You have, oh, and another thing that'll trip you up, scroll up a little, Tessa. Right here, this box is checked by default. Only show access accounts. If that box is checked, you can sit there for hours sitting there trying to find somebody. Uncheck that box before you do your search.
There's not a way to uncheck it from preference.
I haven't found a way to uncheck it from preferences.
But once you uncheck it, it will remember your choice.
Yeah, it will remember your choice. Just make certain that it's unchecked, okay? Now, let's talk for a minute about what this does to our business process. Before we talk about online enrollment, stop me whenever you want me to stop. Right now, we're gonna just do our standard, we're not gonna talk about online registration, we'll do that in a minute. Standard, we got little Johnny coming to school, mama's registered him, and we're gonna go create a record, right? We would go to the demographic page and we would enter all the stuff and type away, entering the information, right? And we would typically, scrolling down, stop here and put the mother, father in, right? Well, if we did that, once we get to 19.4.2, what happens is it automatically creates a record in that person table. You may or may not have just created a duplicate. Because if Nicole is my emergency contact, girl, I'd pick you though any day. And then Nicole comes to register her baby at school, and it's her first time bringing her baby to public school, she's already in that table as my emergency contact. Okay? And if I type her name in, I'm going to create her again, because there's no unique constraint that says, wait up, that Nicole's already here. Yes, ma'am.
Based upon that example, and I appreciate you explaining to me like a sixth grader, based upon that example, is there a potential flag that can be put in place that would say, hey, Nicole is already in here somewhere else?
Maybe it would be something PowerSchool would have to do.
Sort of like how they do with the teachers.
But let's talk, we'll get, in just a second, I think it could be done based on the way online registration works. But that's something PowerSchool would have to do. But here's where we need to change our process, because there's no search here. You scroll all down, you've got your submit button, there's no search. Okay? So if we don't enter the information here, but we put in enough to create the kid's record, then we go to the contacts page, the new contacts page. Because there's one up at the top under just the core PowerSchool stuff, and then the other one is still under North Carolina, okay? So if we go to the contacts page,
You want to go to this one or
Yes,
this
that
one?
one.
So that's the core one.
That's the core one. So if we didn't have this information entered, I would click on the add button. Scroll back up. Click on that add button. And it brings me to a search page. So I would put in who I'm searching for, and it would tell me, are they there or not? It would give me those same basic fields that we had for me to determine, is this the same person?
Be careful on how you search on this page, because if you spell that first name one way with one kid and a different way with another kid, and then you put in John like she did, but it was spelled Johnny on the other page, it's not going to find, I don't think it will find, it might find Johnny, but I'm not sure.
I don't think it, I think it finds derivatives, but
It might, I would probably type in last name.
yeah.
And sort that way, more general.
Well, let's go back to.
And you gotta uncheck your box, right? So I would search here, and if, okay, so I find one and I determine, yes, this is the right Johnny, or I say maybe it's not the right Johnny, then I would click on new contact, and I would add that contact.
When that data manager or whoever's doing that search right there, is it looking at just the contact people for their school?
No.
Or the whole area?
Everybody, that table.
One of the things Sandy maybe wanted to mention, there is an inactive button as well. You can have inactive contacts, which are the same contacts as the one you're trying to add. Because when it migrates the contacts over, it brings over.
Go back to that one, Tess.
Graduates in the graduated school.
Oh, yeah.
And it brings over those for inactive students. They're inactive records. So they could belong to this kid where you're trying to create a contact form. So you might want to check, include inactive as well, because they know it's just like a course. When you're looking for courses and you have inactive courses, but you want to use that course, same concept.
And in case y'all didn't hear what Russell said, I'm gonna repeat it. It converts the mother, father, guardian for every kid in the database. Graduates, inactive kids, all of them. Okay?
So that was, I was breaking down a little earlier, that's what I'm going to do with the access accounts. So you have a parent that has a graduated student.
You could clean that up.
And now they have a kid that's in elementary middle, 2 different email addresses. That's going to be 2 more.
Yes.
Number of the nightmare that we've got
Yes.
going on.
Now, when I clicked create new one, new contact, I would key all my stuff in, and then I would go, and there's a lot of information. You could associate multiple students here. Where's the relationship? That's students.
Right here?
Yeah. Okay, right there, the relationship. If I was to, once I create the relationship, if I say, this is Johnny's mother, it writes back to the demographic page. Okay? So that's a good thing. Once you key it in here, it writes back, and you make that mother-father relationship or guardian relationship, it writes back. Honey?
So.
I'm just glad that I'm not alone anymore.
So I have 150 kids coming from Wake County.
Uh-huh.
Theoretically, you've cleaned up all their data and whatnot. When I go to enroll them and start tinkering, is it going to?
Okay, so I know what you're getting ready to ask. You're asking me, is it gonna come over, right?
Right.
So right now, it does not. In November, it will. PowerSchool says it will. But let me just throw this out there.
We'll put another layer on.
I'm gonna just throw this out there, okay? We had a conversation in a meeting the other day. I don't really care if it comes over personally, because if I got a kid coming from Cumberland to Wake, all that information is probably wrong anyway.
Right, but if they're coming from Wake County, Leesville Road High School to Longley School of the Arts still in Raleigh.
True, but the majority of it is going to be inaccurate versus your ratio is a lot lower than from me to Franklin. Right. Or me to Carteret. Okay? So do we really care? Plus, I don't know about y'all, but my data managers, I love them. That's a hard working group of folks. But if they scroll through a kid's record and there's data there, they go, oh, somebody's done that. They don't even look at it. They don't review it. If it's blank, they have to stop and fill it out. Right? So I personally don't care if it comes in. That's a conversation for the larger group, certainly.
But the mother and father will never change, so.
No, the mother and father won't change, but you're still gonna have to search for them before you add them.
Well, I wouldn't say never.
If they convert, well, they might.
Yeah.
If you convert it over, the mother father should transfer. That's a good point, because the mother father's gonna transfer.
But you said the contacts aren't gonna.
Well, if it comes in the mother field, it's gonna populate in the table. So it might be that's a step of cleanup of when I admit a new kid and I transfer records, then I have to go and search for duplicates. Because like I said, we're not really far enough down this road to know exactly everything we have to do. But it might be that if I transfer records in, I admit little Johnny and then I hit the transfer record button. The record comes over, the mother father's there, so it's gonna populate it and it's gonna put it in my person table. Because mother father automatically goes to person, person automatically goes to mother father. So there might be a step there that we then go search the contacts table to see if it duplicates it.
Right now, as far as we know, the North Carolina contacts will still transfer like they always
Yes,
have.
yes.
It's just the new contact page will not be, they said November, then they said December, so I'm not.
So we don't know for sure yet.
So next year.
The thing is, both of them need to be kept updated.
Right.
North Carolina and the North Carolina, the only time we can not update them when it was the state is no longer pulling any data from that particular page. Right?
Yes. Sandy, do we know? Ask this question.
So-
This is from a webinar.
This is from webinar. Francine Dillingham wants to know, does father on the demographics page convert to parent one?
Do we know what order those?
I don't know the order, Francine. That's something that we can take back and look at. But I don't know the order that it converts in.
So on this contact, if that's the kid you were under, that's the student you were under, down. Yeah, that's the student you were under when you clicked on the contacts, correct?
Yes. I think so.
Yes.
That may be the one that's already associated.
That's the student you're under.
That's the one I'm under, yes.
Okay, there's no relationship listed there, so how do you put the relationship in? There's no drop-down box, there's no add or edit.
Add students, because I've pulled up a record.
This is the student.
I would want to add students, and then it gives me a place to associate a new student and gives me a relationship.
Yeah.
Ashley?
Okay, so when you look at the parent, let me back up just real quick. So do you create this, if it's a new student, never been in North Carolina school, do you create the new student first and then associate the parent? Or do you find the parent first and then associate?
I would create the student first and
Okay.
then
Okay,
go find the
so
parent.
okay, so if we did that and we go to associate, am I gonna, if I search for the last name and it comes up with mom, and then is mom already attached to dad or do I have to connect?
You gotta find dad too. They're separate. Remember, every person has a record.
Okay, because I was just thinking of blended.
It's a paradigm shift. We're going from thinking about it as a student to parents. Contacts. Jill?
Okay, another question from Francine is, will persons, plural, come with the student if they transfer within the district?
As far as I know, it should. I mean, there shouldn't be any reason for that to be disrupted at all because you still have the association to the student. We're associating the parents to the students.
Okay. And this question is from Crystal Britt. Did you say that Guardian email on the demographic screen will import
correctly to the student.
No, well, it creates a guardian email. If there's an email address in that guardian field, it will create a record in that person's table, that will only be an email address. It has no other data associated to it.
It won't be substituted.
But I'm assuming that field must be the same. I don't know. Field of the record, field of error, but it's the
I think
parent
it
thing
is.
where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's the parent, it's that demographic screen.
And
So,
you said it'd be no name and email.
Right, right. Now, it will be associated to the kids. I think it still does have an association to the student. So if I pulled up Mary Jones and you had an information in there, I think it still is associated to the kid, but you don't necessarily know who it belongs to. I'll have to look back at my database. My database kind of got blowed up when I was converted to 19.4.2, so hopefully I'll have it back tomorrow. Let's talk for a minute about online registration. How many of you in the room are using that product right now?
Tell us the good news.
Okay, so the good news is, this is the good news. The good news is that online registration, when you go and you polish and approve that record, when you bring it over, if it finds, this is what Chris has told me at Unified Enrollment, that when it goes to bring it over, if it finds a duplicate for the parents, it will stop and give you a delivery exception. That's what he's telling me. It'll give you a delivery exception. So you would have the opportunity at that point to determine, oh, there's already a Mary Smith in the database. It's my Mary Smith, and you wouldn't import another one. The bad news is we can't change the mapping until we talk about the 2021 school years. Because we're already using a form for 1920. We can't change midstream on a form and a mapping. So we're going to have to plan now for our 2021 form, which is something we're probably already in the process of updating that form anyway. The good news is too, there's a lot of people on this product, they know where it's got to go and they know how to use it. Yes,
So can we export and import without using the online registration? Can we export it out of online registration and import it in because we'll know what's the field? Are they gonna give us the field name?
we probably could. The issue's going to be, we've got to do an association to the student. Because you can import it into the person and the person address and the person phone, but then you've got to do an association to the student ID. So you've got to have that ID number for that Mary Smith in that table and associate that ID to the student ID. That's the tricky part. And there's templates, and Jason Sprinkle's got stuff out there to it's just, there's no good way. I'm hoping, and maybe we all talk about it, we can have a genius moment and go like, hey, what if we do this? But I don't know. Rod?
Is it using the student number, the student ID, or the student DC ID?
I think it's the ID.
So the ID can be duplicated.
Not the internal student.
The DC ID is only just.
It's probably the DC ID. I'll look at the table when I sit back down. Oh, I think I will. I don't know if I can get to it or not. Yes, ma'am.
Back to bringing a student in from another county. I guess I'm questioning this step. So if we bring a new kid in and we don't fill out the information on the main page for mom and dad, when do you transfer the records? Before you fill out any information on the demographic page? Because if you transfer the record, you said if you bring mom and dad in, if you already filled it out on your page, have you not just created a duplicate?
That's a good question. And these are all conversations that we need to have in a big group, because it's probably at that point, if you import it, if you do the transfer record,
Before you
do it, and then you could do the cleanup if it's there. Search for it and look for duplicates and consolidate any that you find. The point is, we have to change the process. I don't think we know for certain what that process is. I think the hopes for, DPI and Justin and the group was to come to these home-based meetups this week and to have these candid conversations and to have conversation about what do we need to change? How do we need to address this? Because like I said a while ago, it doesn't matter whether we do it now or we do it next July. We're gonna be sitting in the same place.
But it sounds like when you're setting up a new student, that you should never fill in the parent names on that demographic page, ever.
That's my thinking.
You submit it and then you go look to see if you've already got somebody existing.
Or import the records and then check.
Information transfer.
Yeah.
But a lot of counties don't have them released yet, and that can be a nightmare. So you can.
I think we just kind of have to talk about it and figure out what's the best way. But I'm with you. I think that from, we wouldn't actually type a mother, father in on that page anymore. But
There are two things that PowerSchool recommends. One is don't put the mother and father on the demographic page. And the other one is that the family component becomes useless.
right.
Where you're managing the family, where you're putting that, these kids, it says that becomes useless for this new set of contacts. Eventually, some of these things are going to go away. But.
And you can edit, so I can pull up, if you click on, Sam Bennett right there,
On his name.
on his name. So I can click on that contact and then I can edit all this information for that individual person. It really is a little better. In the long run, it will be better. It's just, I got this thing hanging in my office, hangs right by the door, and it says, "This too shall pass." Painful and like a kidney stone, but it's gonna pass. And that's sort of the way I'm trying to look at this. This is the only way around it.
Let's look at the bottom of that screen on that contact. Go up a little bit, go back to switch. Okay. You know how on our contact page, on the hooked on contact page, you have the flags for who can, pick up, who's not, all that stuff. None of that stuff comes over with these core contacts that come over.
Right.
You have to put it in there. Now, I don't know if I should go this far at this point yet or not. There is a spreadsheet. Should I go that far? That can be used to actually, you can actually pull your North Carolina contacts. I'm not telling you to do this. Okay. You can pull your North Carolina contacts using the student, what's it called? Student contacts report. That's not exactly right. Exactly. One of you use for your white box. You can pull that, and then you can use that information, put it into this spreadsheet, and then import that into the new contact page. So that all of what you have on our contact page will then be there, along with all the duplicates. and
So
all
you're
that,
just
but at
creating
least-
more stuff to clean up.
But at least it would be there. Now, the other question would be that if you did something like that, and I guess this is something you will think about in your conversations, if you did something like that, you would probably, and I'm not telling you to do this, you would probably want to wipe out, after you exported it out first, you probably want to wipe out all that information on that page before you imported that information in there.
But you also have to import your student association. Because if you just take it out, like Russell's talking about, and got in a spreadsheet, is there a field there for
PowerSchool has a
association?
spreadsheet for every, the campus.
It does have one for that, but that's just another step you gotta do. But you could wipe it out and redo it.
Pull up the contact last name Aguilar.
Aguilar?
Yeah. Just go to the A's and then go find, it's gonna be on about page 6 or 7.
But I don't know.
I think it's either page 5, 6, or 7, somewhere there. Try 6. Pull up Izzy. Izzy is one that I pulled out of a database of the North Carolina contact page, and then I imported some of the stuff in, not all of it. I imported in that Izzy was the aunt, she had custody, the kid lived with her, she could come up at school, but all that stuff is pulled up. And when you go to search to see if Izzy is there, when you're going to add her to somebody else, she shows up. But the spreadsheet has even more than that on it. Spreadsheet has a lot of
Got
stuff.
a lot of fields on it.
Yes, and if you like, I think Sandy, if you have custom fields that you've added to your contact page, you can add those as extended,
I think it's that extended that use FEMA.
yeah, you can add those and then you can pull that data in for them as well. Because what you end up with is every one of these people has a contact ID. Just like the student has an ID, everybody has to have a contact ID.
Person ID.
Yeah, person ID. And so you can match that when you're pulling it in.
But, and he's right, they've got spreadsheets, they've got a process, they've got, but this is also a lot of work. And you're also depending on that the data on that page is what? Accurate.
And it doesn't clean up the duplicates, no matter what.
It's not gonna clean up the duplicates, you're still gonna have to fix that somewhere along the line.
Where did you get it? Where do you check that they have custody? I don't see that on the contacts.
It's on a separate little,
Can you edit that contact on that line?
right here,
Control pencil, yeah.
here it is. The
That's
little
not-
edit
That
pencil.
didn't come over from whatever you done.
No, that was from where Russell had exported it from the North Carolina contacts page, put it in a spreadsheet and shoved it
That's
in.
what I'm saying. Where, because on the North Carolina contact page, there's nowhere in here that says custody.
Isn't there a box for,
lives with-
no, it's lives with.
You can, well, I thought it was custom made, but you do the lives with, you do all the rest of that stuff. Because those are on that page.
The pickup and the lives with, yes, and the relationship, but not.
Are we
So-
gonna start using the start and end date for contact?
Okay, the start end date, that's something that's different, brand new with this particular process. Because remember, we've got a record for everybody. So you don't necessarily want to, if Nicole was my pickup for emergencies, you know, when school closes early, but me and her, we had a fight at the ball field last week, and I don't want her to pick my kid up anymore. So you can put an end date, so she's no longer associated with my child. But we wouldn't want to delete Nicole from the database, because she might be picking up her Stella's child. So we wouldn't delete her, you just do an end date to end that association with that child.
You can also do that with their addresses, because they move.
So when we put end dates, does that person disappear?
I had to
Because now
try
we're
this.
trying to tell administrators and teachers to look at end date, that's not gonna work.
I haven't tried it, to be honest. I have to go look. Actually,
I'm just thinking, mom and stepdad married and then they divorced and now stepdad's gotta be removed. But we wouldn't know unless mom just.
yeah. Well, you want
That
her
could
to
always
tell
be
you?
associated.
Well, and I'll be honest with y'all, we had this conversation. I went up to DPI, we had a face-to-face meeting last week, and I pulled up my database and said, here it is. And had a lot of conversation around it. And there's a whole lot of, well, you know, we don't know, the data's not right, the this, the that, the blah, blah. And I go back to, if there's data on that page, nobody looks at it. Because my child, all four of them, I have 4 children that all graduated from the same high school. First of all, that's very rare and uncommon these days. All 4 of them graduated from the same high school, and every one of them's contact information was wrong when they graduated high school. Every one of them. My stuff, I was never wrong. Where it never got up there. So, you know, is this really a bad thing? But you're forced to look at it. It's big. And I honestly feel like it's gonna take, and I just will say this out loud. I know y'all get tired of me going, but I'm real big and I got a lot of folks. But like I said, it converted every kid in the database. When I went to that person table and looked, I did a select count star, give me a record count. I had 1,100,378 records in that table.
Never had that number, did you?
Could have been 2 million, right?
What's with the duplicates? I know we want to clean them out, but until we clean
They're just there.
They're just there.
They're just there.
They're not hurting anything.
They're not hurting anything. It's just ugly, not clean. Until we get it all clean, we kind of have to operate in two places at one time. And I think it'll take me a solid year to get it clean. Because I can't do it for my schools. I don't know that they. I thought about bringing them all in and having them sit around the table like this and say, okay, now we're gonna do this step. Now, but can I do that? Because now they're not at the school where the records are. I don't know. Maybe we print reports.
And it involves like siblings.
Yeah.
And parents that use an address at that school and an address at that school.
And what's gonna happen, and we talked about hierarchy, and this is one of the conversations we need to talk about hierarchy. Because do we start at high schools and have them clean up, and then, you know, because if everybody's doing it at one time, and I got a kid in the elementary, middle, and high, do we care who gets to it first? I don't know these.
Once we get done and you've consolidated everybody and the person table is populated and there's one person, maybe a parent, maybe emergency contact for other people, and then you have a parent for which that person is the emergency contact you to tell you that, oh, this contact's phone number's been updated. Do you do it off of that person, or do we require the person that is the contact person to notify us of phone number changes?
I don't know the
I
answer.
mean, that's a whole can of worms there.
I don't know the answer.
What are we gonna require before
What do
we
you
change
do?
the contact person?
What do you do now?
You take the parent's word?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe we continue taking the parent's word.
But now.
But it's gonna update it across everything.
But now you're not just impacting their child's records.
You're updating everybody that person's attached
So
to.
that doesn't seem like a good practice.
Yes.
So are we ready to talk about procedures?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's pretty much all of that. So,
So if we should change a contact phone number, our auto dialer, how quickly will the change take place? Let's say the data manager should change her phone number at 11 o'clock. And she sends out an auto dialer message at 4 p.m.
it should change it instantaneously. But you gotta be pulling from that table. Cause see, like right now, all of our stuff's pulling off student contacts. And I'm not gonna change anything until it's clean. Because the main concerns were things like, and the comments that came after were, well, you know what, people are gonna have to be more vigilant, because they are. But some of the main concerns were, oh my God, what if I send the wrong IP to somebody's address? Or I contact, you know, somebody regarding free reduced lunch, or something that's, you know, lawsuit worthy kind of stuff. People are just gonna have to be more vigilant. Because honestly, that could happen today. It's just, these are the kind of things that make us more aware and sort of rise our.
So, since you mentioned that, where's ECAT's pulling information from for the student?
That's a good question. I wish we knew.
You're right.
I can get that.
And how is that gonna change after the 19th, or whenever?
Well, everything stays in place.
It's gonna stay in place.
Everything stays right where it was. This is just something additional, okay? Everything stays the same. But if I don't know exactly where.
So we'll have the NC contact screen for all of this school year, 1920. I thought you said it was ending in like November.
No, that contact screen don't ever go away.
So our NC contact page will stay.
Unless at some point in time, somebody decided to hide it.
So we update those.
That's the conversation we have to have. There was concern about, well, if something's gonna happen where they're gonna update one, they're gonna forget to update the other. Probably, but you know what? After a few times, you're probably gonna remember. But I don't know any other way. Maybe when we all get together, we can, you know, I just know that it's ugly. It is a train.
So
So what's gonna break when it all pulls back, when the new system comes out?
Nothing's
If
broken, just have a
nothing
man.
breaks, it's just different.
Okay.
And see, that was the conversation that was happening the other day too. It was like, this is broken. It's not broken. This is 100% functional. These are the steps we have to take to clean up because the functionality's changed. And the North Carolina contacts page won't go away. It's still there. Sits there just like it was. Completely different table sets, completely different structure. That information will never come over because we asked for that. It was a custom page. It's just one of those things. We can export it and import it, but we have to have knowledge around that. We have to understand what we're doing and make some decisions.
Once we get at the LEA level, once we get all of the contacts cleaned up, is there a way at the LEA level, something you can check to hide the North Carolina contact screen from like office staff? Because I don't want them, once we get done, you know.
Page permissions would handle that. Page permissions would handle that. Once we get everything cleaned up, we can hide that page with some page permissions.
So I don't want to look at something that.
Correct.
Have somebody delete
And
it.
be confused and go like, well, I admitted it. Well, no, that page, once we turn the lights out, so to speak, we can handle, just do a no access to that page and.
But don't we want it when 19.4 comes into play? Because
Oh, yeah, we want it now. We don't want to turn it off now. I said, I'm thinking next summer this time, I'll be clean.
What?
student contacts.
So,
Turn it on.
See, let's talk about the guardians that are coming over. There's been discussion about getting rid of that information before the upgrade or getting rid of it after the upgrade. But it also, because you get rid of guardians, it says that information is also on the parent page. And whatever you put in that field on the new contact page, you want to copy back to the parent guardian field.
yes.
So whatever you put there is going to come
But
back.
it comes up at the top up there in that parent field. It doesn't create a contact on that page that says parent.
No, I thought the guardian field that's on the parent page creates a contact on the new
Right,
page.
right.
And if you delete it from that new page, but then you go, I still want that email address there. You're going to put that email address back in. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to automatically create another contact once you've deleted it, or whether it's just going to go on that parent page instead. Since it's a dual write, it would make me believe that it would.
You would have to, I don't think it would create another one. I think it would just go from page to page.
But what I will tell you that if you let the migration occur, and then you export out that guardian information, and you just have to make sure you have the last, and you have to have a.
Well, I've got a report.
But there's a way to very easily use a number delete. A number
Yeah.
sign delete, get rid of it all, just
Yeah.
like that.
But we could do a report that says this kid and this email address belongs to this person kind of thing. And you could key it back in. And it might be a way we can import it, but we gotta export, figure out what belongs to and import it back.
Okay, so in order to clean this up, once everything comes through, and the only thing coming through is the guardian, the mother, and the father fields. So we're gonna have to go student by student and manually create all of these contacts.
You talk about North Carolina?
Yes. Or you can export it
And import it.
and import it in. But that's a whole nother conversation.
All the fields filled out, with all the checks in there you want, with everything you want there, because it will create, if you import those contacts in, it will create, of course, duplicates, but it will also create a new person ID number for them. It'll put the checks in. If you put the checks in, it'll put everything in that you tell it to put in based on that spreadsheet. Because there is a spreadsheet available to them, because that's what I did with that one you saw, that had the checks. I just put a little bit of information in there. And you can tell whether it's active or not, whether it's the aunt, whether it's the uncle, or what, grandmother, grandfather. The only thing you have to make sure is, one of the features that's new is code sets. You can supposedly add to the code sets, like for aunt, uncle, stepfather, stepmother, blah, 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 blah.
So you create different relationships.
Right, because if you don't have that there, and you import it in, you got a problem.
Right.
But there are also two different relationships here. There's one called relationship, and there's one called original.
That was from that old table that I don't think you can use anymore.
Yes, it's the one that links that mother, father to that record. It's coming from the original mother, father.
From the original one on the demographics page.
So that's what's linking them together. It's that, this additional field, both of those fields exist. That's what links them together.
If I was gonna export out all that,
Are there written instructions?
yes, ma'am.
Step by step by step.
There
on
are.
how to export all of those fields from our databases.
There's not written instructions for that page because Jason Springle didn't do that page.
The spreadsheet has instructions to a board.
It needs to be spelled out, because I
Right.
don't want to make, as I do testing as well, I got my mind going to two different places.
And that's something we know that we have to, if that's the product of, okay, we want to be able to export all this out, put it in a spreadsheet, we know we've got to do some step-by-step instructions. Because remember, that is a custom page. PowerSource isn't gonna have step-by-step instructions for how to get the information out of that custom page into a spreadsheet.
And it should be for quick export, because a lot of people, we don't have all the same.
Well, and that's another hurdle that we have to talk about too, right? We gotta make sure we got everything, that's what everybody can handle.
We're getting into the stuff that I want to group,
Yep.
small group discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead though.
I was just going to say that I'm able to export all of my student contact, like anything that's on that custom page. There's a report where I can just export it from.
Yes, there certainly is.
And it should be something that everybody's already got.
You can get it from the SQL 5 report. There's a SQL one there
That's not the
too.
one I'm using.
Okay.
The one I'm using, if you go to system reports and then go to.
We just have to make sure we get it back in the right format in the spreadsheet to import. That's the tricky part.
I just need the template.
Yeah. We just gotta get the template. But remember, you're gonna create some duplicates there too. But Justin wants to go to small group conversations, so.
So, I mean, y'all are bringing up good points, and this is stuff that I want us to talk about in groups and get this stuff on a collaborative document. So I'm just gonna say what's already been said. You take that back and plan from there. So we told you at the end of last year, there will be a phase 1 and a phase 2. Because at the time, PowerSchool told us we could not have the custom contacts page and the core, right? I think Dan Gwaltney actually came to one of our meetups, and one of his concerns was about the training transition. PowerSchool's going over here and they're picking up our support, not training transition, support transition. So they didn't want to have to be responsible for responding to tickets related to 2 different pages, right? But we've gotten them to agree to allow us to move forward with this upgrade with both contact pages. But like I said, DPI staff is still using custom. So if we keep both pages, it's going to be important that we keep both of them up to date. So knowing that, and knowing that we've already said phase 2 is going to be January, well, I'm hearing that is probably not possible. Phase 2 is going to be when we take student contacts pages all away altogether. But that's already been out there, so that January date's still published, right? But I want you to go back into your groups, and I've created a document. Russell put together a lot of good information, and that's this bottom link document with further info. If you want to have somebody from your team have that document up and roll through it, y'all go over that together. And then I've put some questions here that I want you all to answer together. And so on that first document, that first link, it'll take you to, I set up one for the virtual attendees also. So I don't know how the virtual attendees can communicate. Huh?
We'll have to open it up so that anybody can kind of.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll
you
fix
need
it in a
to
second.
give, you need to give. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll fix that in a second. So once we split up, I'll fix that. Can you get to the first one though?
They're both need
Okay,
permission.
so I'll fix that. But anyway, these are the questions I want answered right now. How long do you think it's gonna take your district? And I know there's gonna be several different districts at the, at your table. So just throw all of your ideas together and kind of brainstorm. Training, like what's this gonna look like for training you guys? What's it gonna look like with training your data managers? So I need, let's look at the whole picture. What you're gonna need from us. Since we've got a large group, so like I said, I set up a virtual attendees group. So if the people online want to get on there, as soon as she gives you access and jot down your thoughts. And then I've set up 6 groups. So if this room can split up into 5 or 6 teams, have somebody in charge of updating this document, somebody reviewing the document that Russell put together. And we'll do that till about 3:15, and then we'll wrap up. And it would be good for, she's fixing it now. It would be good if you could split up and have people on your team who have test servers so that they can talk to you about their experience so far. Or like Person County has, what's it called? Enrollment? Yeah. So if we can get different people at the table who have different tools that connect to this, that'd be good. Yes. Yes.
Try both of the documents again and let me know if anybody has any issues.
You probably have to refresh the.
Yeah, you should be able to edit the first one and only view the second one.
Yes. Okay.
So I have, I've got I would think that it would still need to have a time scale tied to the section. Is that correct? So there's actually 2 grade skills that we tied to that part. One of those standard size.
Right.
Do that need to be tied to that standard?
Okay, because Cheryl doesn't.
Right.
How the one would be tied to this section?
We have.
Right.
It's not as writing.
What do I need to do? Is there something I need to do?
Should we? Yeah. Let's number you off before you start taking notes. Has anybody already claimed the group? All right, here's 5. Y'all are on Four.
Or is it just the parents?
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Are you doing it by the login?
We're not going to get.
You tell online where you're thinking of.
There's a virtual group. They're the very first one.
Pretty much. We have a program there that's a program. It's a charter school bullying, and she's because of accountability. The question is, this building has would it be best practice to cross the wall to that building teacher? Or put the teacher in all their buildings, they really are going upside across the field. Now, purposes do the scores of that bird face that they're on that. That's really what ultimately good times for the ENG.
All the stuff about one contact
mainstream elementary record for, they're actually sitting over here in a different spot. Having told my teachers and they do it school that way because our every house school class is before there was NCYs. Because that is their moment. That already was. Because I would like to cross my brain already database concept of that's how they're on the floor, they're being, I don't understand about this, like, because I know I have to write down. Discipline is anything, just like the teachers, we don't have emergency contacts in that, just like how it should work. But so every year when we get kids, I understand the concept of figuring out if it's a parent that already exists, but I'm not, or even have, now that charter schools can take in kids who had siblings who graduated before, like it used to be you only need to apply, you had a kid currently in school. It's pretty tame. Now you can apply if you had a sibling that graduated already.
Like, once I go in and I first thought about it, I was like, oh, this is awful, but then when I looked at it, it's just that you get a contact as a sibling. So those parents, I have really contacts, so you just gotta go.
So I mean, I already have words.
Yeah.
So I have.
Well, and it's also, it's another thing, having a digital contract. Yeah, and it's really not,
So the children think those are search automatic.
and I don't think it's a bad thing.
That take more matters as far as the question goes, that's the
What
chicken and
happens
the
if
egg.
somebody tells me that their numbers changed and I'm
I think we're all
you
parents.
just have another parent contact,
Nothing
and
adds
it's that student.
That's the part of the unlimited contacts.
Yeah, so it's not what's terrible, they were getting only first I thought it was
That happens. Yeah, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, multiple things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
There's
think
gonna
my
be
love
one
starts
contact,
at
parent contact created for elementary.
Right.
Yes.
But I think once we get past the video meeting thing, I think there are some things that.
No,
that
and
needs to happen.
then the small thing. Oh, yeah.
You might search for something.
So then the question is, who gets trained? If you're trying to work with each school, like,
Rob was with US history.
Oh, really?
At Impact High School, he taught US history. He was literally my favorite teacher.
Well, and I also had.
He cared not only about how I was doing in class, how I was so over, and also he cared about all the stuff. And he's very passionate about his person.
All right, I'll see you all.
Bye. Are you gonna be with it all? No.
The board meeting, Thursday, I need to be there for 5. I'm trying to get on the webinar.
Right, and dad's.
Check out the live stream. Robert.
If I can, yes, they're not live streaming this session.
But at least,
Applies this.
So if I plan to be there, unless something changes.
and the kids, I'm on my way to Scotty.
But right now, but I will be in her office Wednesday and Thursday because of board meeting. So if I can sit in the board meeting and listen to the stream, I will. Because I'll bring my little pods that day.
And that's what, sure, it's almost like.
Are we still live streaming?
Cedar days.
Should I turn it off?
Yes, because.
Oh, no.
Like this year, I only had like 6 or 8 kids who had to just down.
We have a lot.
Right.
or drive back on Thursday.
So I guess we need that screen that was down.
They can see what's in chat, but they can't put anything in chat.
Oh, I did that because I didn't know.
Yeah, they can see whatever you put in there, but they can't fix things.
Oh, I see.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. We're gonna take everything you put in this collaborative document and I'll create one for each day, and that's gonna kind of give us an idea of what all's going on. But just some things I know we need to consider. Like, each district needs to be, you need to start, and this is something we've talked about at DPI also. We know that there's districts who have these third-party connections, right? But you may be a new data or a new coordinator, and you don't know what the coordinator before you may have done or set up that you don't even know what's going on behind the scenes, right? So that's something you all need to start looking at. What all reports have you created or somebody created for you that you're using that's pulling from the custom contacts page? And then the DPI reports that we're using that's pulling from the custom contacts. So what's going to happen here is like it's going to have to be a collaborative effort. Like whatever timing we start looking at, then we're on that same timeline with you because we're going to have to change our reports. And we're going to have our reports ready to switch over by the time you all are ready to switch over. And the other way around, right? So that custom reports page is going to go away. I mean, custom contacts page is going to go away eventually. But the date is to be determined. So I'll go through and I'll read what all you guys put. And then the other thing is training. I was just talking to Jill. I mean, we know we're going to have to get out here and do some face-to-face and some virtual between now and December. I don't think we can wait till the meetups, and I don't really think the meetups is the place to do a, what you call it, cleanup party? That's what it's going to be. So I think once we get through the upgrade next week, whatever's going to happen is going to happen regardless. We've said that. Then that's going to give us more time to sit down and start creating this plan for you guys. But in the meantime, I got this other slide up. This is something that Tessa kind of threw together. We worked with PowerSchool to try to figure out how can we force you guys to make sure these pages are in sync. Because whatever you enter here, you're going to have to enter on the other page, vice versa, until we move away from this page. PowerSchool had no way to force you to another page upon submitting. So at this time, we're thinking this is not what it's going to look like for next weekend. But we're thinking on each page, there's just going to be a pop-up or a banner that's on that page, kind of reminding you when you submit something, hey, go over here. I think we're going to, did we decide to change that to a link?
Oh, that would be glorious. I would love to do that.
What?
Did we decide to change that to a URL?
We are still working with PowerSchool. They say it can be done, but we are going to keep the breadcrumbs, but probably have like the word contacts linked, so it opens in another tab to the contacts page. And that'll probably be after you submit and save the information, because we don't want you to get caught in an endless loop.
It's just going to be up there, period, whether it matches or doesn't match, it's just going to be up there to remind.
Just to kind of remind your data managers.
Yeah.
So we're going to do what we can to support you all, but, you know, we need you going back to your districts and over-educating and over-communicating with your data managers to make sure we're all on the same page. Russell, you want to?
Did you want to mention the other elephant in the room?
What's that? Oh, no, you go ahead.
You want me to go ahead? I'm sure by now all of you realize that FTP is going away, Overcom and all this stuff, and you're going to use SFTP. We have a report that supposedly tells us how many each of you have or do not have. But you need to, one of the reasons we put in the information went out in the newsletter that you probably will, well, not probably, you should run any FTPs that you're using, FTP offices or autocoms, because once the upgrade occurs, FTP is done for you. Now, I did, as I was looking through some of the LEAs with the FTP and SFTP, I did notice that some of them looked like they were disabled, which I was hoping that meant that they were never being used again. And then I also noticed some that, I know in Granville County, we use SFTP with some of those that I saw using FTP. And it wasn't just because we had an SFTP server. It was because that's the way the people we were communicating with were set up. You know, one time they were FTP only, and then there was others that's FTP. So just know that, you know, upgrade occurs, FTP is gone. So if you want, if you got anything you need to update, like some of you were using FTP to bring it over to the students and bring it over to the parents, probably to update your Active Directory or update your something else. So I would make sure I ran those before the upgrade. And after the upgrade is gone, and if you need a local SFTP server, you probably need to start trying to get one. It took us 2 years. Finally get ours set up. It was different reasons why it took that long, but it took about 2 years to get it set up. That's not really what it is. That's just what it does. So just know that it's gone. So run anything you can that you need before that upgrade starts at 5 o'clock on the 16th. Okay.
Did we ever get an accurate list of who all?
I think that, I'm assuming that this is accurate because what I started doing is I looked at like what LDA had like 75 LTPs. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do they have 75 LTPs? So of course what happened first, I went to the LDA level and I started looking, I don't see but like 3. Not thinking about the schools. And each school had another one and another one and another one and another one. All of them were the same ones throughout the schools. Like maybe Meals Plus was using FTP, or maybe they were using FTP for Connect 5, or Connect, whatever you want to call it. Although you don't have to use that, because there's a different way to do it. But they had it in each one of the schools. That's why there were so many. Because I looked, I thought, oh man, they were going to have such a hard time. So the FTP goes away. But a lot of those were, there were different ways to do it using this FTP that was going to call you. But then again, if all you got was an FTP server, and you're using FTP to transfer your stuff to that server, then I believe you're going to have a problem. So I was going to make sure I had a transfer for the upgrade servers.
Where's the list that you have?
Our list actually just shows, I've got a spreadsheet. I don't know if that's a spreadsheet that we can share or not. Yeah, but maybe not. The one that lists all the.
Yeah, I'll look and see what's.
We're pretty sure we're okay, but we want to check and make sure we're not on your list or something.
I don't see why I would want to be.
I'm sure it was spreadsheet. You want me to send it to you when you?
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
I don't see any reason why we can't share that.
I'll send it to Justin and he can share it with you. So basically what it says is that it has the LEA name, it has whatever the new name is. It has that new name and it has a little logo. See, this is how many FTP connections you have set up. Okay. So I just want to mention that one because that one was a real, when the first message went about the upgrade, that was a real big item. And we had discussed that several times. Hey, Justin, I'm out of your way.
All right. All right, any other questions or comments before we wrap up? No? Good deal. You have anything, Jim? Anything else?
Oh, I will mention this. You may want to mention to your data managers that as they are moving your transient and staff members around, that they lose their security roles, like their school net and their new, not in class, but read to achieve role, so that the sync is correct. Last week I was working with the district that they said, oh, my principals aren't showing up. Well, yes, there was a data sync issue going on at DPI, but also they had not moved their principals and assistant principals around and then given them their roles. So just a friendly reminder, as you are moving your any of your staff around, they'll need those roles added. They do not need everything checked in SchoolNet though when they get those Don't give them all the keys to the world, especially if they're teachers. There should be a consistent process for what roles you're assigning for school. That's just a friendly reminder.
Okay. All right, I updated the presentation. This is now on that last slide so that you didn't have to go back to the other and pull it up. So if you don't mind filling out the feedback form, then you're free to go, but we're going to stick around for a few if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I was trying to write everything down.
Okay, did you sign off? Did you sign off over here? Do you want me to sign off? Oh, you're still
Let me
answering
answer a couple questions.
I can't do anything worse than them just like turning it off and getting everybody.
Yes.
One of these questions won't close down. Where did Ross come in? Yeah. She
Oh, I got that up in the background.
go.
Literally us.
Where'd she go?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jade.
No, I mean, it isn't always. So do you want a phone number? They should have it already.
Yeah. Who asked the question? Did you unmute it?
Yeah.
I don't know, who asked that question?
Sherry, what's that?
For some of them,
What is there, is that like a special?
Yeah.
I've got what? Share.
Track orders, track orders, it's one of the capital track. If you just take it, hopefully we'll stay with it.
What I'll do, I think I'm gonna part of the presentation so everybody will.
Or maybe,
And then they'll have, yeah.
Talking about the phone, she said, and now they have.
Any more questions? Then we'll hang up.
Make sure your mic.
Yeah.
Huh?
Make sure your mic.
Oh, yeah. And for the people online, do the feedback, please.
Morning.com.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess.